Because something can be a right-wing talking point and it can be correct. Something can be a left-wing talking point and it can be correct.
Well, it's not correct.
Well, okay. Well, I think it is correct. But either way, when it comes to let me explain. God, let me explain. Oh my God,
Dylan, you yourself know that's not true.
You gotta let me finish.
You know
it's not true. Lord above.
Guys, calm down.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I'm talking over you. I just was telling everybody a little about you, saying, you know, we disagree with a lot of things, but I really respect you because unlike a lot of people who, for instance, oh, we have people coming in. I don't know how Spoke Steve got here, but that's cool. You know, a lot of people on our side have a problem with people who support Ukraine and America because they see them as like just following the newest thing and they don't actually have any skin in the game. But like you actually went over there, you actually put your money where your mouth is and did reporting over there. And I just think that's really cool.
Thank you. I'm actually back over there. I'm in Kiev right now. I'm in my bunker studio that I rent. I have this like studio that's a little bit underground that's soundproof and all hooked up with internet so I can stream. It's also very safe.
That's cool.
So I can like stay here through the night. If anything happens, I'm fine. I don't have to like run and hide anywhere. And I am going to be filming with some IED crews, some people who dismantle bombs. I think it's really important because these bombs are going to be in the country for years, like years after this war is over. They're going to be dismantling these bombs. So, I mean, there are IED crews that are dismantling bombs from World War II in Ukraine still. And so they're going to be doing work for a very long time. And so I feel like we should give some coverage to them. And I'm trying to interview a lot of like just locals and those affected by the war, try to give a really uncensored, unfiltered viewpoint of those who are most affected by the war. So this work has really grabbed me. It's hard to say I enjoy the work, but I do enjoy this type of work. I do enjoy bringing attention to these issues that I think are very important.
Yeah, it is important. I was talking to people here saying that even if you don't agree with like all the money that's being spent in Ukraine, you have to realize that you know they were attacked, and there are you know, there's a lot of danger with Russia winning that war and then being able to spread throughout the rest of NATO over in Europe. And here's the thing, though, is like, if we're just going to get right into this, but and I actually wanted to talk about NPR and the media, and we'll get to that in a minute. But
sure.
So I agree with you. You know, I support Ukraine in this war and everything, and you know, I've been with this since the beginning. You know, back when the riots were first going. And because at the time it reminded me a lot of riots I was seeing in America, and I'm like, wow, this is there's a lot of mirroring going on here. But then, and I told people at the time, I remember a lot of people on the left and the Democrat side at the time were saying things like, oh, like we can't get involved in this, but it's too dangerous because Putin will get us into a nuclear war. And I remember arguing, oh yeah, but if we don't do anything, you know, that's going to embolden him even more. And I've noticed now I've kind of switched on that because now I'm kind of nervous about nuclear war. And like, I remember, I think I talked with you about it and you said sort of similar to that same thing that, oh, we can't afford to let Putin threaten everybody with nukes and do whatever he wants to do, which I can understand that. But I mean, do you still feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel the same way. We were actually just watching a video and I was just kind of ranting about this. I think that the threat of nuclear war has been overblown purposely by the Russian state because they are in a very desperate position. And one of the only tools they have left in their tool belt when it comes to diplomacy, since they've been isolated, definitely since Putin's now wanted with the ICC, it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to engage in diplomacy because, you know, going to these countries, technically, according to ICC guidelines, if he lands in a country that is an adherent to the ICC, they have to arrest him. That doesn't mean they will, but that's according to ICC guidelines. So it's kind of restricting the diplomacy diplomatic options he has on the international stage. He's isolated. His military is underperforming on a drastic level. The supposedly second most powerful military in the world is unable to fight Ukraine on its own, really, even with Western aid. How are they going to fight all of NATO in a prospective war? Right. I don't think that there's any scenario from the Russian perspective where they use a nuke and it ends up good for them. So that's why I'm not that terribly concerned. And I put my money where my mouth is when it comes to this. If I was terribly concerned about it, I probably wouldn't be in the country that would be the first to be nuked in the scenario.
Well, I mean, honestly, if it does get nuked, that's probably the best place to be, so you don't have to suffer through what's coming right after that. Because, I mean, so you blame
the stream. It would be. I get a lot of views, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be probably one of the most amazing streams ever. But I'm saying, like, all the things that you just laid out has me worried about that. Like, so it almost has me thinking that there's no way to avoid nuclear war, that we are doomed to annihilate ourselves, because I don't see how this ends any other way, honestly, because like you said, Russia's running out of options. The tactical nuke has always been on the table. They've been moving, their tactical nukes to Belarus, and I know it's a show of force, but I think that if it comes down to it, they'll use it. And if they use a tactical nuke, you and I both know that spirals out of control into a nuclear war.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard because we've never been in that situation before. And so I think so it's kind of hard to know exactly how it would play down, but it is most certainly a possibility, and a scary possibility, that if they were to use a nuke, that it then spirals into an entire international global thermonuclear conflict, which is part of the reason that nobody, China, America, India, any world power does not want Russia to use a nuclear weapon. But do you want my spiel about why I'm pretty confident they're not going to do it? You want my spiel?
Yeah, absolutely. Make me feel better.
So the first reason I don't think they're going to do it is that if they were to use a nuke in Ukraine, this would come with intense international backlash, not just from the West, but also from trade partners that they rely on to stay stable as a state, definitely since the Europeans aren't buying up their energy market anymore. I don't know if I 100% buy the thing that people say that, Russia's a gas station with nuclear weapons, and that's basically what they are. I don't really buy that. But when it comes to trade with China, that element of energy trade is very important. And one of the few scenarios where you could get China to actually agree to an embargo or a stop on Russian energy exports to China is in this scenario, because China does not want the normalization of the use of nuclear weapons in warfare. They have a hard enough time as it is keeping the North Koreans on a leash to start giving them any ideas about actually reconquering the South through the use of nuclear weapons. The same thing is true with India and Pakistan. It's pretty easy to see why they would not want this type of weaponry to be normalized. This on top of the fact that if they were to use a nuke in Ukraine, and we all lived to see the consequences of that, it would probably come with more Western aid to Ukraine. That wouldn't just be radiological, more military aid, more financial aid, because now would be a scenario for the international community to say, if we allow Russia to win through the use of nuclear weapons, then we're sending a message to every tin-pot dictator or any group in the world that wants to go and invade other countries or start conquests or genocide or any number of horrific activities on the international stage, that they could go out there, fail on every level, and still fall back on basically terror tactics as a form of rational diplomacy, go through with the use of that terror tactics, and then get rewarded for it. And so I don't think the international community, even those who are, you could say, quote unquote, in the Russia camp, would want this scenario to play out and would want Russia to have repercussions for this. Not to mention the fact that if they were to use nuclear weapons, there's a decent chance that there's radiological spillover into Russia. The reason we found out about Chernobyl in Ukraine is not because the Russians decided and the Muscovites and the Soviets decided to be very nice to everyone and tell us about it. It was because Swedish nuclear scientists picked up the radiation that had spilled over all the way to Sweden. And so I think that would also be a possible ecological problem for the Russians, as the spillover could, according to weather patterns, spill over into Russia. There's also the problem of, do we even know what the status of Russia's nuclear arsenal is? Are they prepared for an international global thermonuclear war? I mean, it's a possibility. It really is a possibility. But after seeing the condition of their military, I don't think that's something we can just take for granted, that they 100% they're ready and waiting at the bit to launch these nukes all at once, and it's all prepared in the most tip-top shape. We saw how corruption has degraded the Russian military, and there's a decent chance that it's also degraded the condition of their nuclear stockpile, which in and of itself is a threat. But it's a threat of there being an accident, not a threat of there being, a button being pressed and them actually going through with something. Not to mention, just because Putin gives the order doesn't mean somebody even follows the order. We actually had negotiations with the Chinese where they agreed with us in exchange for us not sending jets and long-range missiles, that they would convince Russian generals, or they would attempt to convince Russian generals that they had gotten to know through wargaming that they had done with the Russians, to not go through with the order if Russia gave them the order. Because this is something that is of an interest to the Chinese as well, as we talked about earlier. Not to mention, and I'm sorry, there's just so many points to this.
No, go for it.
If Russia was to use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, most likely it would be a not a large scale like strategic, it would be a tactical nuclear weapon. It would be a smaller type of nuclear device. And most analysts, most experts seem to agree that the use of one or two of these would not have a tremendous impact on the battlefield. It would be a weapon of terror. It would kill a lot of people, do immense damage. But due to how large the front is and how many soldiers are at play, it's not something that would fundamentally shift the balance of the war. They would have to use like 40 to 50 of these weapons to actually have some substantial impact on the battlefield. And now we're talking about a ton of nuclear strikes. So we're not even talking about the violation of like one, like, oh, we're using one nuke and we're violating this international standard. It's the use of 50 nukes. So they would basically have to go all in or go home. So there's no like tiptoeing here. The Russians would really have to commit. And of course, the more they commit, the more backlash they're going to get. The more response they're going to get from the international community. And so if they do end up using the one or two, they try to take the moderate approach that is less likely to end in the world literally exploding. Then it's
you
only
don't think that NATO would respond with a nuke of their own somewhere after that?
I think there would be some response from NATO. I think it would be a substantial response from NATO. I don't know if it would be a nuclear response, if we would end up doing direct strikes to disable the locations where the nukes were launched from. I don't know, maybe we would commit troops to the war if something like that would happen. I don't know, because whatever that scenario is, exactly what we would do, the American government's not sharing with us.
Right.
It is said that they have shared in private to the Russians that if they were to go through with this, there would be immense consequences. I don't know exactly how they described it to them, but from how it was described to me, it was not a pretty picture. But the last piece of the puzzle here, and I think this is the biggest piece of evidence as to why I don't think they're going to do it. If they were to blow up the world, the Russians have one problem. Russia's on the world. And that seems to always be the problem that these dictators who want to acquire nukes and then use them run into, is that if they end up blowing up the world or getting blown up in the process, which is very likely, then you've blown up and it's game over.
Yeah. I mean, who was it? I don't think it was Putin, but somebody close to him said something to the effect, there is no world without Russia or something like that. It's that kind of rhetoric that makes me nervous.
Yeah, but there's also no Russia without the world.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, those are all good. Those are all good reasons. I am concerned with China getting closer to Russia. I don't know if they're worried about nuclear war, why they would do that, unless they think helping them to end the war conventionally will avert that.
I think the Chinese very much don't want the Russians to go under, because if the Russians go under, then basically the United States can just concentrate on them. Right? The worse the Russia does in this war, the less America has to worry about Russia in the future. That means less troop deployments in Europe. That means we need to spend less money on American military bases in Europe. And that means that this quote unquote American pivot to Asia can go into even more drastic effect as we try to defend the Taiwanese.
Yeah, that's another shoe to drop. Hopefully it does not. But and hey, I hated to just go over what you were talking about before about following around the bomb disposal and everything. When are you going to be doing that work? Where are you going to be posting it?
I've already I think I'm going to be posting an interview that I already did with some sappers. That's going to be part of a bigger project that I'm working on. That could be posted possibly as early as this weekend, but I'm going to be going out with crews. I don't know exactly when. We're still trying to find a date because these crews are very busy, and I always emphasize to them that your work is the number one priority. Only tell me when you're 100% free and you've got some time to sit down with me. So we're just trying to find some free time because there's a lot going on in the country right now and they're very, very busy. But it should be about this month or next month that we go and do something. We go out and film.
Okay, well, cool, man. That's really neat. Be careful out there for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I follow the war pretty closely as far as combat footage and the video coming out of there on Reddit, on combat footage or Ukraine War Report. And yeah, I mean, this is a deadly, deadly war. I've never seen anything like it. I've been following combat footage going back to Desert Storm, and man, I've never seen anything like this. It's a meat grinder.
It is certainly something different. I mean, I've talked to a lot of American veterans about their experiences war, and a lot of them have expressed to me, definitely the American veterans who have come over here and fought, that this war is very different from what they experienced, and this happened a lot during the early days of the war, where people would come over, American veterans, and they would be shocked by how the status of the war, because they're used to counterinsurgency tactics. That's what most American veterans have had to deal with for the last 20 years, either in Afghanistan or after the initial invasion of Iraq, when we transitioned into the occupation period. And even during the invasion of Iraq, we had overwhelming air superiority. The Iraqis never really stood a chance. We conquered the country in like 28 days.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's, but then you compare this to Ukraine, and while the Russians don't have air superiority, and that's really humiliating for them when you think about it, they said they had air superiority in the first 24 hours of the war. I just want to remind everybody that they said within the first 24 hours that they had disabled the entirety of the Ukrainian Air Force. Just the bizarreness of the alternate universe that Russian media propagates. But they still do air sorties. They still use drones. They still use a lot of missiles that don't always get shot down. And they use a lot of Iranian supplied drones against civilians in the Kiev Oblast and all across the country. And so the air campaign that American veterans had to deal with was completely different from what they were familiar to. And not to mention, the artillery is completely different, because the Taliban just did not have the firepower that the Russians have, this old Soviet stockpiles. Even if a lot of it isn't high tech, an explosive is still an explosive. And if you have enough of them, if you swing enough with the hammer, you'll hit something.
Right. And yeah, the artillery is super accurate, super deadly, and the fact that it's most of the terrain is very flat doesn't help. But I think next to the artillery, the biggest change in this war, although it didn't start in this war, I believe ISIS was the first to use it, but just the drones dropping different munitions.
I honestly can't even be around drones anymore. I hate drones now. I can't be around
Jesus,
them.
Man.
I remember I used to play with drones with my dad. I can't play with drones anymore. Do you want a story, a drone story?
Yeah.
I just don't know exactly what you want to talk about, so I don't want to take up too much of your time if this is distracting you.
No, I got a good segue here in a little bit.
But I went down to the Zaporozhye Oblast to film a medical crew that was going down there called the Angels of War, that needed to do an evacuation of some injured people and drop off some aid. And after we had dropped off some aid, we were in the city, the free city of Zaporozhye. And I had heard while we were going into the city that we were given an offer to go to the forward operating position, which means the front line. I don't mean like vaguely near the front line, the last position until where the Russians are. And so that is a pretty big opportunity. I've never been in a situation like that before. And I made the split-second decision that I was going to do it, because I knew that if I didn't, I'd be kicking myself for the rest of my life if I didn't do it. If I didn't take the opportunity. And in the other scenario, I wouldn't know that I wouldn't be kicking myself, because it would be quick, most likely. So I decide we're going to do it. They give me the okay, and we drive out. We're driving out to the forward position, and this wasn't the first time I was vaguely near the front line. The day before, I had visited vaguely near the front line, but on this trip, everyone was 100% serious, and we were traveling there, all armored up, body armor, helmets, to the forward operating position, in what can be described as a soccer mom van painted green. And as much as people talk about all the aid we've given Ukraine, the majority of the equipment I see is being driven around in soccer mom vans and cars. The vast majority of it's still being driven around in that. As much people talk about all this aid, there's still a big, I would say, deficit in armor and armored vehicles that can transport troops safely. That's why I was really happy to see the Bradleys and a lot of the old Vietnam era armored equipment being sent over here that we don't even use anymore, we don't produce anymore, from the 60s and 70s, just stuff that was going to rot away in stockpiles anyway. And so we're moving towards the position, and then we get a radio call. The person driving us gets a radio transmission 2-3 miles out from the forward operating position, saying we're getting shelled. Do not come over here. We're getting bombed right now. We're being attacked. And so we pull off on the side of the road. And me and my friend Patrick Hilsman, who did work in Syria, and 2 Polish friends of mine who work in media, we were just kind of sitting around on the side of the road, talking to soldiers, filming the soldiers, trying to just get some casual B-roll footage, mostly, of just like, what do soldiers talk about on their off time? And I had some good interactions of people like meeting up, like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while, because there was like other soldiers coming by and hugging. It was really nice. And then I hear this like this weird just like sound, and I couldn't put my my finger on it. I didn't know what it was. It sounded like, you know how your phone vibrates? That sound that your phone makes when it vibrates, like a tiny engine? Maybe more like a swarm of bees, I think is the most accurate way to describe it. I hear the slightest buzzing sound. And I asked my friend, Patrick Hillsman, do you hear that? He's like, no, I have no clue. What are you talking about? And I was like, whatever. And then 5 seconds later, someone yells at the top of their lungs, drone, except they say it in Russian. And so we immediately all run into the forest that was next to the road, and we hunker down into the forest because we don't know if this drone is armed. We don't know if it has if it has grenades attached to it, and they could press the button and it drops.
It could be dropping already.
Could be a suicide drone. It could just be ready to ram straight into us and kill us all. And so we were trying to spread out in the forest to make it difficult to see us, and so we're not all crunched up next to a van. And so we're in the forest. And eventually they just make the call that we're going to make we're just going to run for it. And so we all just rush back to the van. We get in the van and we drive like 2-3 miles and then pull back into the forest into a better position. So we're now not only hiding ourselves, but the van. Now, Patrick Hillsman, a reporter who's done some good work in Syria, great guy who hasn't gotten his break yet. And I really hope he gets his break. He is adamant that the artillery that we heard afterwards in the distance was the position that we were at getting shelled. We never went back to check. That could be or could not be the case. I don't really know. We're in this new position and we're waiting to see if, did the drone follow us? Or when are we going to make the run for it? We don't know. And we're waiting. The longer we wait, the more nervous I am. And I feel more nervous outside of the van than I did inside the van. Actually, no, reverse that. I felt a lot more nervous inside the van. So I was outside the van.
Did the van have a sunroof?
Well, no, the problem I had with the van is that people think that when they're in the car, it's like a little fortress, but cars are unbelievably vulnerable. If you've seen any car accident and how these cars can turn into just soda cans and they just get crushed. If you come up to that van with a Glock and you shoot it, that thing's gonna be riddled like Swiss cheese, man. Maybe like a 22 LR rifle could be stopped, but anything more than that is gonna tear it to shreds. And so any shrapnel, any explosives, grenades, suicide drone, any of that would tear it apart. And all the footage you see online of people dying, maybe a little bit more recently with the house-to-house fighting, we've seen a lot more people dying due to machine gun fire, stuff like that. But most of it up to that point was vehicles exploding because the Russians were so reckless with their armor. And so I felt a lot more nervous in the van for that reason. And the other reason is when you're in a van, when you're in a car and it's driving around, you got nothing to do. You just sit there. And so your mind starts racing and you start thinking about possibilities. You start thinking about are they looking at us right now? Could any second I could blow up? What's the percentage chance that this is the day? And your mind starts racing. But when you're outside of the van, you can do things. You can lay on the ground. It makes you feel a little bit safer. You can preoccupy yourself. Maybe you can talk to somebody else. You can distract yourself in a million different ways. You can start, taking up grass, putting it on your head, thinking you're putting on camouflage. What you can do. Stuff you can grasp at straws to reassure yourself. And I appreciated that. Somebody gave me a Snickers, actually. That was one way I reassured myself. You're not you and you're hungry. So then we jumped back in the van. Eventually, they gave us the go-ahead to try to make a beeline for SPG-9 training, which was a few miles away, some area, some place in the area. I can't really disclose where. I don't really remember where, so I can't disclose it anyway. And as we get into the van, they go... And the van won't start. It broke down. There's a drone circling overhead, and the soccer mom van decides now is the time that it's just going to stop working. As the minutes crawl on, they continue to try to get this van working, knowing that the longer we're there, the more likely that this drone, which had spotted us, is sending coordinates back to the Russians who are going to fire shells at us. But eventually, either through the miracle of God or whatever, the van starts up and they drive us off to SPG-9 training. And that was my experience with the drone. That van would later break down later in the day when we were at the forward operating position and we were trying to drive away. So that van is a death trap just waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, damn dude, that is freaky.
I actually had to push the van. We had to push the van to get it started.
Got a tier 1 subscription.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I asked about the sunroof because there's all these videos of them dropping grenades right through the sunroofs of these vans.
My gosh. But yeah, no, I don't like drones, man. Those things are scary, man. And the thing is, it's no different than if somebody was to tell you a bird can kill you. How do you run away from a
Right.
bird if you're out in the open, right? It's a
Right.
bird.
And if they're high enough, you're not even going to hear it.
Exactly. We got lucky that we could hear it, and that even though I didn't identify it, somebody identified what that sound was. We were very lucky that we could hear it.
Yeah. And, you were mentioning earlier about the Russian, propaganda about their air abilities, air superiority. And, it's interesting because back here in America, our media likes to portray, Donald Trump as this kind of pro-Russian Putin ass kisser kind of guy, and Biden as this like heroic, Ukrainian hero. But, when it came to the defense of Kiev, one of the things that was a big element in that was the anti-tank missile systems that Trump sent them, right?
The javelins and stuff. Well, as far as I was aware, that was congressionally approved, wasn't it?
It was. You're right. Yeah. But I mean, but that was something that Trump openly supported and called for, and Biden before that did not give them weapons.
I do have to give him the thumbs up on the fact that he supported it in one way, but I am still pretty miffed about the fact that he tried to kind of hold it up in exchange for information on Joe Biden,
right,
which I'm pretty miffed about, because now I think that looks worse now that the war's happened, when we considered how much that aid was helpful. Could you imagine if he decided, well, he didn't give me the information, I'm just going to hold it off, then you're not getting the aid. And then they didn't have that aid when the war happened because they didn't want to give him information on Hunter Biden and his prospective political opponent in the years to come. But I will say that, like, the lethal aid is something that they needed, and I'm happy that it happened during the Trump administration. I wish that it happened sooner. I wish Obama did it. Obama's Ukraine policy has turned into a massive failure, and it's more evident than ever due to this war.
Yeah, and that's kind of the next topic I wanted to get to is our media. Just because you and I kind of had an exchange there on the last debate with Destiny and all those guys, and the Crucible with Robert, and you had well, first of all, what do you think about our media? I mean, do you think so? I think it is essentially Democrat Party state media for the most part. I guess we have to define what media is, because obviously not all the media is like that, but I think a majority of it is. What do you think?
No, I don't really think that's the case, because thing is, when people talk about state media, I watch a lot of state media, and I mean a lot. I have to for my work. I watch a lot of.
Gave Ezekiel _23 _20 a tier 1 subscription.
Let me just lower that. No, they're fine. They're having fun. Sorry, they're singing "Bird is the word." I don't know why. Thank you for the tier 1 sub, Jade Monkey. Sorry, could you repeat the question? They're throwing me off purposefully. I remember. Yeah. Okay, so I watch a lot of state media. I watch a lot of Russian state media, and they create like an alternate universe.
Me too, by the way.
For their government. For the way that they portray themselves as the heroes every time, that Russia's never wrong. They're always the victim.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
They're not only always the victim, but they're also always powerful, and they're also always the winner. I don't know how these three things can coexist, but they do somehow, right? In the wacky world of Russian state media, I'm doing a big piece right now. It's a pet project of mine. I went to that Rage Against the War Machine rally in DC, and I'm doing a piece about it, and I'm talking about how Russian state media has seeped into American media, and how certain influencers are relying on it to peddle disinformation. But so something that's consistent about Russian state media is it's not going to criticize the Russian government. It's not going to criticize those in power that it is meant to serve, and it's only ever going to criticize the opponents. And so when I think about things like, for example, like the Wall Street Journal and the opinion pieces that they put out, Wall Street Journal, I would say, is an example of a media that is not Democratic state run. It is something that was critical, had opinion pieces that was critical of Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan. That has been, ran opinion pieces that were supportive of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but is often kind of touted as like this Democratic state run. It's like Democratic media, DNC.com, but it isn't. And I think that is also true of a lot of other media companies that are labeled in that way. And I'm not saying that there isn't media that is biased towards Democrats. There obviously is. But I am saying that I think painting this blanket picture of the media as just, oh, they just service the Democrats, I think is not true. I don't think that's an honest depiction of it. I would also like to say, about the debate we had last time. The debate we had last time was about whether or not the press, the media, were the enemy of the people, and we never got to really expand on this one point. We had to move on, but that classification also, to me, was very dangerous in my mind, because it isn't that difficult after you've accepted the premise that the press is the enemy of the people. The next step in that is then the government says, okay, how do we deal with this threat? How do we deal with the quote-unquote enemy that is harming our people? I know, let's pass laws restricting said enemy of the people who are attacking our people. This is how you lead into like McCarthyism and a lot of restrictions on freedom of expression that I'm very opposed to and very wary of.
Okay, so it might be easier actually just to focus on something like NPR, because it's in the news right now because Twitter just labeled them a state media organization, state media affiliated, which I agree with. And I see what you're saying about Russian state media. I watch a lot of that too, and it's...
Wait, why do you agree with that?
I'm sorry, I agree with what? That NPR is state media?
Yeah, why do you agree with that?
Oh no, I'm gonna get to that. I'm getting into that. So Russia state media is like crazy, right? But like I see a lot of stuff that I recognize in that stuff and their shows. I recognize a lot of stuff that I see here. Like one of the things is justifying their actions by saying, "Oh, our opponents, our critics are Nazis and racists or whatever," right? And so NPR, I'll swing back to that. NPR. First of all, does get government funds. I was looking at their breakdown, their finances breakdown here, and they get about 8% from the Center for Public Broadcasting, which is federally appropriated, and then they get some federal, state, and local government money. That's 4%. So they do get some state media, or they do get government money, and I'm sorry, but NPR, every single person on NPR and NPR in general has a Democrat Party left-wing point of view. They come at it from that perspective. When they talk about Democrat policies, it's in an advocacy sort of narrative, whereas when they talk about Republicans, it's adversarial, which is the way the media is supposed to be. So I'm not opposed to them being adversarial towards the Republicans, but they're supposed to be that way to both parties, and I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing advocacy for one side, like, and I'll give you another example of that. Protests. I made a list of truths that exist in our media, and one of them is the only legitimate protest is one that's pushing a Democrat left-wing agenda, or however you want to label that. Because I can't think of a single Republican right-leaning protest that wasn't demonized in the worst possible terms by our media, whereas I can't think of a Democrat left-leaning protest that wasn't carried, supported, promoted, and protected at all costs.
Okay, so so the first thing on the government funds, from what I saw, they take about, I think, 1% or under 1% directly from federal funds, but the rest of the money that comes from the federal government comes through like the local partner stations because the local partner stations get federal funds, and then those stations have to pay NPR in order to like host NPR content, and that way the funds go through the partner stations to NPR. As far as I'm aware on Twitter policy is not, if you get government money, you are state affiliated media. If that was the case, then they would have to label the BBC as state affiliated media as well. And
right,
Twitter's policy explicitly states in their policy recommendation, on like how they talk about this, the BBC, they give it as an example, and they used to do this for NPR, but they removed it recently. This is the thing that really confuses me. They kept BBC as an example of non-state affiliated media that is funded by a government because it has separate it doesn't give the government editorial control, and therefore they don't consider it state affiliated media because the government doesn't have editorial control.
Give it up willingly. They do it willingly though.
They give what up willingly?
NPR, like another good example of this would be the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Can I?
No, I'm saying like that.
Okay, so you're saying okay, but that's not how. So you're saying that because they're not critical enough of the Bidens, that means they're state affiliated media, even if it doesn't mean that they're having their like content controlled by said media. But then that would mean
I'm saying they're willingly going along with the government.
But if that's the case, would I be state affiliated media if I just came on stream every day and praised Joe Biden?
Well, no, because you're a commentator. I mean, you're open about who you are and what you are. NPR claims to be public media. It's not public. It doesn't represent the whole public. It represents Democrats and the left.
It's not okay. Well, it's not supposed to represent the entirety of the public's viewpoints. It's supposed to, according to NPR's ethics, it's supposed to just cover the facts and the information, express that, and maybe every once in a while it might like have like a guest piece by somebody, right? It's not meant to like, we're going to give you the Republican opinion today, or we're going to give you the Democrat opinion today. It's meant to just give you the facts and possibly
but they do give you the Democrat opinion every day. That is all they do. That is
well, can I finish my initial point though?
Yeah okay. Go ahead.
So under Twitter's guidelines, the BBC, they give it as an example of non-state affiliated media that gets government funds. And up until now, NPR was considered in the same way. And so for whatever reason, NPR has been taken off this list. And you're saying that's because they praise Biden so much. But No,
that's not it. But go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so the government funds aren't enough to just make it state affiliated media. And if we're using the same label to talk about Russia Today and NPR, when the editorial control and the influence the government has over these two types of media are completely different, totally different ends of the spectrum, where NPR has held the government accountable, on its own government accountable on its website with its reporting before, and Russia Today would never, ever do that. And when they do that, or the people who work for them do that, they try to penalize them, or they tell them that's not how to go. For example, in 2014, there was this woman who on air talked about, look, I don't support the Russian invasion of Crimea. And then they got emails from the people, Sima Moyan, the editor-in-chief of RT, telling them that's not with our guidelines, and we're now going to send you to Crimea. And they ended up dropping out and quitting the job because they didn't want to be controlled that way by Russia Today. And so that control does not exist within NPR. And there are pieces of the NPR criticizing the American government for its actions and the current administration, both when Trump was in office and now when Biden's in office. And so I don't think that label of state-affiliated media, which is applied to Russia Today, and where I'm going by Twitter's own standards here, it does not match up.
Okay, yeah, and I don't totally disagree with you on as far as the Twitter label goes, because I do think there is some weirdness there, because BBC is definitely state affiliated. I mean, I'm pretty sure Google labels it as state affiliated news. I'm pretty sure. So I don't know what's going on with that, but Twitter, as far as being different from Russian state media, in Russia, it's the same power and party, or the same party in power all the time. And so that's why they're always, if Democrats were in charge all the time, I think NPR would much more resemble RT. And I mean, you say that NPR does hold Democrats accountable, but I don't really see that. They will hit the government from the left if they're not doing something that's like left wing enough. But mostly all they do is advocate for Democrat policies and demonize anybody who stands in the way of those.
So I'm gonna read you an article headline. This is from August 15th, 2022. This is mid-Biden presidency. This is from Franco Ordonez. He says, for Biden, the chaotic withdrawal from Kabul was a turning point in his presidency. A year ago, U.S. troops withdrew from Afghanistan, a chaotic end to America's longest war, and a turning point in the Biden presidency, a moment with his approval ratings fell and never fully recovered. The White House plans to mark the anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan later this month. President Biden wants to recognize and honor U.S. service members and allies who served during the 2 decades of war. It's a moment remembered by many Americans for images of crowds of desperate Afghans at the Kabul airport. Some chased a U.S. Air Force plane, some even hanging on as it took off and tragically falling to their deaths. A suicide bombing then killed 13 U.S. service members. Every president has a crisis early in their term, said John Nez, a former Pentagon official who has written about White House during times of war. For the Biden administration, it was the start of a litany of things that didn't go as well as they would have drawn up on the whiteboard. And the rest of this article has a very, for example, the next line in this article is Biden's popularity plunged after the chaos in Kabul. This is one of many articles that is not taking a very consolatory tone. You should see the image that they're using for Biden here. He looks like he's about to cry. His teeth are clenched. His lips are clenched together. It's not a very flattering image of Joe Biden. Right. It's not a very flattering image of the withdrawal being portrayed here by NPR. But everything they said here is true, factual, and I'm happy they reported on it this way, even if Joe Biden is quote unquote my guy, as in I'm going to vote for him again probably in 2024. Right.
Hey, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not like a hardcore Republican or anything. I don't really care if they get scrutinized. I just would like to see that same level of scrutiny on both sides. And we talked about the Afghanistan example before, and that is an example. Like, to me, that's one of those examples where the media can't ignore it because it's so in your face. And so they will report it. You'll find internet stories about it. But like when you tune into NPR, you're not hearing like daily, like, oh, Biden, the warmonger, the war criminal, look what he did. He did. And they're not like droning on about these things daily.
That's not their job isn't to come like, here's the 50th article about Biden being a warmonger.
Right. But that's what they do on the other side, though. They do that when it comes, like when it was Trump, man, day in, day out. Just one story.
I do think Trump is much more of a warmonger than Joe Biden is.
Really?
Well, I mean, Joe Biden proposed. Okay, so
how about Obama? Bigger than Obama?
Yeah, I would say so. I just don't think he's a good warmonger. Can I explain? So,
well, we're getting off topic here, but okay.
Yeah, well, I just want to justify why maybe they would have talked about this more. There is a real thing that happened where Donald Trump proposed invading Venezuela in a meeting with advisors. Right? That is a real thing that happened. A terrible idea.
Things like that happen in all kinds of administrations.
Donald Trump, in private, is also floating the idea of an invasion of Mexico in order to deal with the cartels and think tanks associated with him, or drawing up the plans for how something like that would go. Now, do I think that's going to happen during his presidency? Probably not. But also, he threatened during his presidency to start doing drone strikes across Mexico using, I think he was going to use the AUMF, which by the way would be 100% unconstitutional. The idea that we could use the AUMF that we used to invade Afghanistan and Iraq to bomb Mexico, like that has the same.
Obama bombed American citizens with the drone strikes.
Yeah, bombed American citizens in Yemen as part of the war on terror. Now, I have a problem with that as well, but at least that is vaguely in the same field. But when it comes to the quote-unquote war on terror, bombing Mexican cartels has nothing to do with ISIS. It has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. It has nothing to do with the AUMF. When we talk about Yemen, these terror groups are operating in Yemen. Even if I have a problem with that strike, the AUMF justification is a much bigger leap to Mexico than it is to Yemen. And the point I'm trying to get across here is that I think that Donald Trump is a warmonger. I just don't think he's very good at follow through. He's not very good at following through on a lot of these ideas. One of the most obvious follow throughs, though, I can point to is the fact that drone strikes escalated, I think, 400 to 500% during his presidency. A massive increase in drone strikes. And then he restricted said information on drone strikes. So I think maybe the reason we saw a lot of reporting about him being a warmonger is because he kind of is one.
I mean, I personally don't really care about that, just because all U.S. presidents are warmongers. I mean, all U.S. presidents have these crazy plans. We always hear later about these crazy plans, like invade Canada or like invade Mexico. Like, and it never happened.
I don't remember the Obama invade Canada plan or invade Mexico plan.
I don't know if it was Obama. It was like Nixon maybe, or Reagan. I don't know. Somebody had a plan to invade.
Well, yeah, I would say Reagan's probably a warmonger too. I mean, he committed a lot of horrific atrocities in Latin America.
Democrats are warmongers too.
Oh yeah, of course. Let me be clear.
We were told that Trump was going to get us into World War III.
I think Democrats can be warmongers too. Let me be clear. I think Democrats can be warmongers too. But my problem is, I think Trump, he has a propensity to want to use violence on the international stage. I think he likes that. I think he likes to bomb people. I think he likes to look tough. I mean, he even talked about on the campaign trail, we need to bomb their families. We need to go after the families of terrorists. That'll really stop them, which is like openly advocating for a war crime, which even George Bush wasn't that open about it.
I mean, Biden actually bombed families.
Well, so did Trump at a much larger scale.
Okay, well, that's my point, is all these presidents got blood on their hands.
But to be clear, if Trump is bombing these families at a much larger scale, wouldn't it make sense to see more articles about him bombing families?
They're out there. Well, here's the thing about that is that it goes back to my point that that's an area where all these presidents could be hit, and so maybe the media doesn't go after him for that specific thing.
Oh,
that's kind of why
I think the media should go after American presidents for
Me too,
I think unconstitutional use of the AUMF, but I don't think that a disproportionate that Trump being called a warmonger, more articles about it necessarily means that they're biased against Trump. It could just be, and this is my conclusion,
I'm saying
that Trump is just this, very warmongery more than usual.
I was saying that there weren't more articles about that because the media knows that's an area where that you could hit any of these presidents, and they know Obama, who they're always trying to protect his legacy. They know he went outside the Constitution to bomb American citizens, which going back to your enemy of the people thing, which I wanted to come back to, because I don't think it's a label that is unfounded. I mean, the media, especially when they're ganging up with the government, you have so-called mainstream people like Nicole Wallace and people on her show on MSNBC, multiple shows where they suggested drone bombing Americans in America and suggested drone bombing even Trump, and suggested the Republican Party should be designated a terrorist organization. And this is stuff coming out of the media. And so, like, it's pretty clear to most of us who are on the receiving end of what comes out of like MSNBC and CNN. Yeah.
Have the press always been the enemy of the people, or is this a recent development?
I think so. I think it hasn't always been the case. First of all, it started during the Iraq War, where the press at first was on board and then turned against it when it started to go bad. And I think one of the things that really woke me up to what was going on is how they would go after Republicans, go after Bush, but absolve Democrats, even though Democrats voted to authorize to go into war. And then they would always say, oh, they authorized action, not necessarily war and all this kind of thing. But just the fact that they went to and tried to cover for Democrats, and then they were anti-Bush through that whole time. And then you had Obama, and suddenly, and also through the Bush years, there was a lot of election denial. You remember there was violence at Bush's inauguration. They actually attacked his motorcade. So that was also the first time that we started seeing election denial. And then in 2004, there was more election denial. I'm not sure there was a lot of violence at his inauguration, but then Obama gets elected. No claims of election fraud or any of that. There are protests that pop up. The Tea Party.
There were claims of election fraud in 2016.
Were there widespread? I don't really remember that.
There were. It's just like they weren't taken seriously as they are now.
Right. Well, in 2000, they were taken pretty seriously. I mean, there was massive.
It was the hanging
chads at Bush's inauguration.
There were riots at Bush's inauguration.
Yeah,
I wasn't alive at the time, so I really don't know. I know about the hanging chad situation, but as far as I recall,
no.
Did Gore concede or not?
Mm-hmm. He did, but the media kept kind of, and this is where the media comes in, but they kept kind of stoking it, and it went on for a while. I mean, MSNBC called it.
I asked the question. I just want to make sure I get an answer to that question because I had a follow up on top of that.
Right. So Al Gore did concede. However,
well, no, not that.
The question before, suggest that Bush wasn't legitimate.
The question before, I meant the press being has it always been the enemy of the people, or is it just now the enemy of the people?
Well, I'm trying to say that it worked up to that, to the point where the media now sees people who are on their opposition as the enemy. They see us as the enemy, and they treat us that way.
So I would say that.
And let me tell you how they do that. Can I tell you how they do that? They do that because what I see happening slowly over time is that the media and Democrats, it's not all the Democrats, but increasingly it is, are over time trying to train, or I guess brainwash the country into believing that democracy means Democrats in control. And if Republicans get power, that's the end of democracy. And they demonize us in the worst possible terms, to the point where we can't even protest. If we protest, we're instantly demonized in the worst terms. The Tea Party was peaceful, clean, very few negative events happening in these things, and yet they were demonized endlessly. That movie theater shooting, when that happened, the guy had, apparently there's someone in the Tea Party with the same name. The media erupts in claiming that it was a Tea Party member because they were so desperate to demonize these people.
So,
And so we don't have a right to protest. We don't have a right to free speech because Democrats say that that's stochastic terrorism. When we call them out, they get death threats. And so we can't even criticize them. And so what you're seeing over time is the almost criminalization of the Democrats' political opponents and the criminalization of our speech. You can't even criticize or scrutinize them because that puts them in danger. You don't see that happening the other way.
I mean,
like, you cannot show me an example of the media demonizing a left-wing protest. They're always like carrying water.
I can't give you an example. You're sure about every time we do this, I find an example and I show it to you. Can we just skip it this time?
Again,
Can we just skip it this time, or do I have to go get the
no,
example?
don't skip it. Don't skip it. But let me tell you, there's a difference. There's narratives. You know, narratives, right?
I know.
There's
I'm
no
narrative
in the media.
Yes.
There's no narrative in the media that left-wing rhetoric or Democrat rhetoric results in violence, and they actually say that left-wing violence isn't a thing. People in the media have said that over and over. Right-wing violence is the real threat.
So my question was about if it's always been an enemy of the people. My point
it is gradually so, I think evolved.
We talked about this last time. Yellow journalism during the build up to the Cuban War, the invasion when we invaded Cuba, the Spanish American War, where the media hyped up the United States and Americans, lied to them about atrocities that were going on in Cuba against the people of Cuba by Spanish soldiers in order to hype us up for a hypothetical war, covering the explosion of an American naval ship, saying it was done by Spanish forces, when most likely it was not done by Spanish forces. Something very similar also happened in the lead up to Vietnam during Lyndon B. Johnson's administration, where we just all kind of accepted that the Vietnamese attacked our ship, and then that led to us invading Vietnam. Well, I don't know if it was a false flag. I still don't know the full picture, but that shouldn't have been covered as fawningly and as like overwhelming, like, oh, this is the truth with the media. Same thing also when it comes to weapons of mass destruction during Bush's administration, where the media,
Absolutely.
I do not think were critical enough of George Bush, a Republican, and the narratives he put forward that led to us invading Iraq and the deaths of a lot of people that probably didn't need to die. And
bingo.
So what my point is,
I think that's where it started.
So
what you were
doing earlier was going through these MSNBC examples. This person said this person said this. I can go through the start of American press, the start of American media, and show you examples of people using hyperbole or just straight up making up stories in order to demonize people. Whether it was the American press demonizing the British loyalists in the way they treated American patriots during the Revolutionary War, whether it was media created to demonize black people and the idea there would be a revolt of black people if we allowed them to have freedom and they would take over the country and then start raping all the white women or whatever the media is. There's always been people and figures and those in media that have been predatory towards the American people and try to manipulate them. But I would never, ever, ever during any decade of American media go to start calling the press the enemy of the people when we have we have news organizations doing good work, we have journalists doing good work, and we have journalists doing phenomenal reporting that helps Americans. And so when we say the press is the enemy of the people, we could use the standards that you're using and apply this to any single decade in American history. When the press also, like Robert McNamara and the Pentagon and the files that came out during the Vietnam War and all of these other instances of reporting that journalists have done and risking their life and risking their reputation and risking imprisonment in order to do good reporting to inform the American people about our foreign wars or domestic scandals. And so if we start saying the press is the enemy of the people now, well, then isn't the press always been the enemy of the people? What is so different about it now that makes it so now for sure that the enemy of the people?
Well, I would say no. Well, I would say that what's happened now, I think, is we become very sort of polarized partisanly. And you mentioned the lying or this, about the weapons of mass destruction. I think that's a point where the press started saying, oh, we're not going to believe Republicans. And also you always hear about Watergate. There's like these moments you always hear about. They're always like Republican related for the most part. I can't think of like big Democrat scandals that we're constantly reminded of.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Okay, but nobody talks about that anymore.
People talk about indicting Bill Clinton right now because of the Trump indictment. What do you mean nobody talks about it?
Oh, you're right. That did come up only because of the payoff, right? Yeah.
Well, no, people talk. That's the one thing everyone remembers about Bill Clinton is that he fucked the secretary.
Yeah, but like he was never like an enemy in the media. The media's always loved the Clintons.
The media dragged him over that. Are you kidding me? And they dragged Monica
that's
Lewinsky
when I first got into media, and I do remember that. But I also remember a lot of media people saying things like, "Oh well." Basically saying that people don't care about those things anymore. It's not that big a deal.
People played defense for Bill as well. Just like every single time Trump gets into scandals, there's people who play defense for him as well.
Yeah, people on Fox, people on
Fox,
right-wing media sphere,
OAN,
which is
on
Twitter,
social media.
Right. And what's the rest of the media say? If you go to like ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, NPR, PBS, any of those outlets, they're going to talk about anytime any kind of criticism comes up about Biden, they're going to be like right-wing conspiracy or people on the right wing are saying this. And they say that as a way of like discrediting it. And that's another rule that I see in the media, is that the only legitimate scandal is one involving Republicans, because they treat anytime the Republicans accuse the Democrats of anything, they treat it with like the utmost skepticism. Like you're seeing that with there was an Atlantic article about Don Lemon and saying that he like was really mean and sexist to people at CNN, and CNN's come out and defending him and saying, oh, that's just an anonymous source. You can't say that. And it's like, you guys use anonymous sources all the time. So I guess that's not a great example for me, because the Atlantic is kind of left wing and they're hitting Don Lemon, but
yeah.
No, I just think the propensity of the media, and dude, I've been
also the Hill was recording the Hill. Actually, you want to know the way I learned about the Don Lemon story?
Presidents to compare against.
I
went through the Bush administration. I went through the Obama administration. And then I get to Trump.
The way I found out about...
Can I bring up one more thing?
Well, let me just say this quick. The way I found out about the Don Lemon story was because the Hill was covering it. The Hill.
Right.
I mean, like, and you said the Atlantic was covering it, and you were bringing up the story. I think there's a problem with the partisanship. I think there's a problem with partisanship in media, but I would never say the media is the enemy of the people due to the implications and how that can be used, and the fact that's going to make it so every time the media reports on anything, they're going to say, fuck the media. Media lies to me all the time. I don't need to listen to the media. I need to listen to X source. And then this starts leading people to be like, I'm just going to believe whatever Donald Trump says, or I'm going to believe whatever Biden says, or I'm going to believe whatever this figure says, because you can't trust the media anyway. They're the enemy. And then this completely removes the whole point that we developed freedom of the press in this country. It's a very beautiful thing we have in America, and I'd very much not to lose it by designating them the enemy of the people and making it so this freedom that we have, we don't even utilize because we don't appreciate what the media can contribute to American society.
No, I do, and I'm with you on that. I appreciate the Constitution, the First Amendment. The First Amendment essentially makes all of us press. It makes anybody who wants to go out and get the facts and report the news
am I the enemy of the people, Drone Tech?
But here's the thing. Here's where I start calling them the enemy. When people in the media, powerful people at CBS, NBC, especially the network media, this isn't just like most of the people in the media vote Democrat. Most of the media that's donated to the party from the media goes to Democrats. And so it's obvious that most of the people there are advocating for Democrat. They believe in Democrat policies. And then when they start using that platform to demonize their opponents in the worst possible terms, I can't believe we've gone from racist to white supremacists to domestic terrorists to like they have just increasingly demonized opponents to Democrats in the worst possible terms. And they're using those demonizations of us to justify taking away our freedom of speech. You just had this guy who made memes about Hillary Clinton get prison time. Like, what is that about? Are you
talking about the guy who made those memes that were telling people to go vote like online? You can like text your vote in.
Yes,
possibly contribute to like thousands of people not being able to vote.
No. That's the thing. That's the thing. That's another example of the media spreading misinformation, and her too. But in the trial, there was no evidence that anybody was affected by it. It's funny. It reminds me of the Russian collusion stuff, and them talking about using ads to sway the election. Yeah, and I would always ask, like, how many votes did they sway? How many people?
I'm going to be honest. I have zero sympathy for people like trying to purposely get people not to vote or not know how to properly vote, like purposely trying to like bend our election systems and make it so one of our most sacred duties as American citizens voting is misleading people away for that. I don't have any sympathy for that.
I feel like our media does that. So like when the media goes out there and they say, the media voting rights are under attack. No, voting rights are under attack.
No, that's not comparable. It's not comparable to tell people that you can vote by text and to like criticizing something like voter ID. These two things are not comparable in any way.
Well, I mean, I'm with you in that like you shouldn't do that, and that's an asshole thing to do, but it's also free speech.
Can I ask you a question? If I like walked into like a police station and yelled "bomb," is that freedom of expression?
If you go in and yell what?
If I go into a police station, just yell "bomb" at the like top of my lungs, is that like freedom of expression?
Probably, yeah. I think you could probably get away with that.
I don't think I would. I think I would be arrested.
They might arrest you, but I think in the end you'd probably get off.
I really don't think I would. I don't think I.
That's not a smart thing to do. I wouldn't say like that's not a smart or a good thing to do. But I mean, what if you said bonk and they just misunderstood you?
Well, then I said bonk, and then it's different. It's different.
Well,
that I didn't yell bomb, did I? The scenario's different.
Well, right, but they could have just misheard you. Like that's what I'm saying.
It's possible, but they probably have cameras and they can look at the footage, can't they?
All right, but you maybe I have a speech impediment. I don't know. I'm just saying that's like I don't think you could. I think you could arrest them for causing a disturbance, maybe, but something like that.
The reason we have freedom of expression in this country is so we can contribute, so we don't repress ideas and make it so like people with radical or like controversial political beliefs aren't able to express, or religious beliefs and stuff like that. The reason we have freedom of expression is not so people can mislead people purposefully and tried to stop them from voting so you can benefit your candidate. It is one of the scummiest things you could probably do. If somebody tried to do that on a Democrat side, I hope they like trying to do that to Republican. I hope they get their fucking ass whooped, like unironically. Like that's the type of stuff that is toxic for a society.
Don't you think it is a threat to at least half the country, their speech rights and their protest rights? When the media, I mean, can you give me a single example of a right-leaning Republican protest that the media did not demonize, that they supported it?
Like this is the thing, and this is my problem with how you talk about this. The media. Okay, I can give you a Fox article, 100%. I can give you a Fox article. Okay, Fox. Yeah, then Fox. Okay, Newsmax. Oh wait, and you can be like, well, no, that's different. That's media, but that's like right-wing media. Yeah, that's my point. My problem in in modern American media is
right, but it's right-wing media.
The
very term itself is stigmatized.
Yeah, but my point is partisanship. So there are media companies that will give the perspective that you want.
Do you think people consider right-wing media to be actual legit news?
Also, I'm pretty sure I can find opinion pieces on the Wall Street Journal, like I talked about earlier, that probably defended right-wing protesters. In fact, we have Wall Street Journal opinion pieces defending the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
I'm talking about what people turn on their TVs and watch. I think the articles are kind of a scapegoat because people read them, yes, but the TV is much more powerful a tool.
Okay, you know that. So we keep like moving the goalposts a little bit here. So first it was like, well,
a little bit.
First it was
give you that. I'm moving in a little bit.
First it was like, okay, so give me a media company that's done this, and I'm like, okay, well, here's some media companies. Well, no, those are right-wing media companies.
No.
And then, can you give me a different example?
You didn't give me anyone.
You
didn't give me anyone.
Yes, I did. I said Fox, and you were like, yeah, but they're right-wing, and then it was.
But you know I didn't mean Fox.
Yeah, but if this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be like, give me a media company that did X. I'm like, okay, what about Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, one of these? And you're going to be like, well, that's different. That's right-wing media. I'm going to be like, okay, what about the Wall Street Journal? Well, no, that's written media. That's different. And so you're going to be like, you need to give me an example of MSNBC specifically doing this. No. That's what it's becoming.
I want to see, show me network media, any of the network, NPR, PBS, ABC, CBS, NBC. This is like base level American news organization.
So you want me to find you like an NPR piece saying, I really like the Trump protesters?
No,
right?
Show me anything other than a negative piece about a Republican protest or a right-wing protest.
A negative, okay. Anything. Republican.
Hey, I'll give you a minute to look because I really got to do a quick bathroom break, everybody. I will be right back.
Okay. Republican protests. What is it? What is even a Republican protest? Like a right-wing protest or a protest like sponsored by the Republican Party? So like a right-wing protest or a Republican protest? I would assume it's like a right-wing protest. Maybe would a Christian protest count? He's usually considered right-wing.
Sure.
Yeah, like I think a pro-life protest, maybe. Yeah, I think that would be the most, like, probably the best example. I don't know if the Republican Party even like sponsors protests. I don't think they do. I don't think that's like a. I don't think the Democratic Party does that either. Okay, here's. Continue. Sorry, I didn't.
I was going to say that would be a good choice.
Okay, here's one. CNN. Anti-abortion activists attend first March for Life rally with fresh resolve post-Roe. Anti-abortion advocates from across the country gathered in Washington, D.C. on Friday for the annual March for Life, the first since the Supreme Court conservative majority ended the federal constitutional right to an abortion. The first year march marks a turn in the fight against abortion rights, with opponents' primary goal of returning Roe v. Wade met and half of states having banned or restricted access to abortion in most cases. But anti-abortion advocates contend that their work isn't finished as they aim to advance legislation that restricts abortion at state and federal levels, including setting a minimum federal standard on the procedure.
They're against the protest, clearly, in this article.
Like how
they're against abortion rights, and then they frame the other side as being sort of like, you know, fighting against the bad guys on the other side, trying to take away their rights.
It was 2 paragraphs, and I have gotten no read from this at all about their bias. I guess you could say abortion rights, but it's also like that's a true statement.
I want to see if I find articles talking about gun rights, but anyway, that's still like an internet article. And what I'm really talking about here are the. Well,
do you want me? Okay.
Daily,
so do you want
what
me?
I'm really talking about here are the daily narratives people turn on their TVs or.
So you want me to turn on CNN right now and just see what they're watching, or do you want me to go on YouTube and Google their YouTube videos and see what they've blasted on the mainstream? So like, what am I supposed to even find for you right now? Because I'm finding you things, and you're like, well, this is a written article. So like,
well, what was that from? What was that?
That was from CNN.
I mean, that was pretty. It wasn't really. It was slightly. I mean, CNN does not have.
Well, here.
There's nobody on. There's nobody on CNN who's like, oh yeah, the anti-abortion people have a good point.
Are you kidding? CNN is doing this thing, and CNN's getting a lot of heat from the left for this right now, where they feel that one of the things they need to do in order to help their viewership, because they've had a lot of problems with viewership recently, is have more right-wing perspectives on the show and more frequency.
Who are the right-wing perspectives?
Okay, do you not know about CNN's like
I do. I have seen left-wingers complain that CNN is not lockstep left-wing enough. I have seen that, but I don't
really watch CNN. I don't really watch CNN. Let me look at there.
That's all I watch is like MSNBC and CNN. I don't watch Fox, so.
I would have to go look who's like the recently charged, but here it is. Here's a Hill article talking about it. Changes spark chatter on CNN of shifting to the right, and this is talking about how the CNN is making this shift, trying to bring more right-wing voices, so that hopefully they can bring in new viewership from these communities.
Right, I know. I've heard that. I've read that, but I've not.
Brianna Kaler. Here it is. Here it is. Brianna Kaler, an anchor on CNN's flagship morning program, lambasted Biden's White House last week over a decision to use U.S. Marines and a dark red backdrop in the background of a speech slamming Trump Republicans. Whatever you think of this speech, the military is supposed to be apolitical. Positioning Marines in uniform behind President Biden for a political speech flies in the face of that. It's wrong when Democrats do it. It's wrong when Republicans do it. The anchor wrote on Twitter. This is one of their.
Well,
this is
Breonna
one of their.
Taylor's pretty solidly in the Democrat corner. I mean that.
This is their host criticizing Joe Biden for politicizing the military.
Okay.
So I'm just saying,
I guess I'm totally wrong. The media is right down the middle.
I'm not saying the media is right down the middle, but I'm angry at this classification of they're the enemy of the people because certain figures in the media have an anti-Trump bias. I have a problem with that classification.
I think that the media, I would not just like broadly call them enemy of the people, like the media period is enemy of the people period. I would not say that. I would say that there are many bad people in the media who are tearing this country apart. One of those people being Malcolm Nance, who I know you're not a fan of, but he's big on the left and the pro-Ukraine people because he's been over there. He was in the Navy. He was I want to say he was in intelligence or something in the Navy, and he went over there kind of LARPing, it seemed like, and he's been working with these Ukraine groups that are made up of people who were never in the military and seem to be stolen valor type people, maybe scamming. Anyway, when he was still here,
that would be news to me because I know there was a big piece that was released on people like James Velasquez, but as far as I was told, is there was not really much they had on Malcolm Nance. Was there much on Malcolm Nance?
No, right. He, I wouldn't say he was like scamming, but he was. Hey,
you said he was LARPing, right?
Well, I'm going based on like the early videos and photos of him. I don't know if you remember all that stuff. He had that video where he was like, cruise missile caliber, stand by. Do you remember that?
I do remember that video. That video is silly. Yeah.
It's funny. I can't help but laugh at it. But like, and then there was these pictures he took where he's wearing these gloves that look like they're 5 sizes too big, and is like, you can never put your finger on the trigger, and his uniform's always super clean. But that's not necessarily my issue with him because he's over there. So like with the same thing with you, it's like if you have the balls to go over there, I have a level of respect for you.
From a personal level, I've heard mixed things about. From one person, I'm told like, oh, this guy's completely unreputable. He's like all in for the money. Next person I talked to is like, I've met him. He seems very interested. He's a true believer in the cause. And so like, I haven't met him personally, so I can't really say.
I think he literally hates Russia and wants to go over there and help kill Russians because he thinks they helped Trump to steal the election. I honestly think that's what it is. Because when he was back here in America, he was losing his mind every night on Joy Reid and Tamron Hill's show on MSNBC. And one time claimed that he said straight up, your Republican neighbors want to kill you. He said that. It's like,
if he said that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Yeah,
he said that.
He said that, and it's like, I got banned from the combat footage, or I didn't get banned. They won't let me post anymore on the subreddit combat footage because I posted that about Malcolm Nance. So, it's like, it's like you're going over there to fight a war, but you're trying to like. I feel like that's enemy of the people type stuff I'm talking about when you have people in the media saying stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'm sure I could find any number of statements on Fox News. Definitely the Dominion lawsuit has revealed a lot about how Fox News operated. The Dominion lawsuit has showed a lot about unethical business practices Fox News has not only participated in, but also how anchors were saying things they just didn't believe. How Tucker Carlson behind closed doors, I'm sick of talking about Trump. Fuck Trump. I never want to hear about him again. At the same time, while these networks are entertaining these theories, while many of them behind closed doors are saying, of course these are fake. Well, we should announce who the victor is, but we're scared.
Those are opinions.
What do you mean? What are
that lawsuit's going nowhere? By the way, I promise you,
whether or not the lawsuit's going anywhere doesn't that's not really what I'm pointing at. I'm pointing at the information that was revealed by the Dominion lawsuit. All of the emails, all the private company emails kind of revealed how like they were saying one thing behind closed doors and saying another thing on air about what their opinion supposedly was about if the fraudulentness of the election, where they were saying things that they knew categorically were false.
Well, you say that categorically, but there's no way they can know it. They could have a strong opinion about it.
So if I say in private, like, Joe Biden is the winner. He won the election. All of this shit is nonsense. But then I go on air and I'm like, this Dominion vote. I mean, there could be a lot. There could be a lot there. You really think? I mean, hey, a lot of bamboo ballots.
Right. Well, so I always point to past elections, and there's a video out there showing, I think, 10 minutes or maybe even 20 minutes straight of Democrats and people in the media saying, casting doubt on voting machines. I don't know if it's specifically Dominion. I think they might come up a couple times, but it was some other. There was another voting machine fiasco, but saying all the same stuff. You're telling me that like it's totally different when they say that, but somehow if they entertain the idea on Fox, I mean, to me, it's like they might think that it's all bullshit. Hold on, they might think it's all bullshit, but we've had years worth of Democrats and people in the media saying that there's problems with these machines, so maybe there is. So is it not like?
Well,
it's weird to me that they're suing them for it.
My problem is they say one thing behind closed doors and then another thing in public, which they've already said behind closed doors that they don't believe and they think is false. That is you changing your opinion for the public because you don't want to get backlash, and that's what they're expressing in these private emails. They don't want to get backlash from their base. They're afraid of them going to OAN and Newsmax if they're not friendly enough to Trump's position, and so they're entertaining these ideas that behind closed door they know is not true.
Well, for the way I'm looking at it is they may have totally disagreed with it, but still talked about it because, like I said, there's precedence for it being an issue. So why would you cover that up? Yeah, if they covered that up when there's past precedence for it, the viewers might have a problem with that. Yeah, like why wouldn't they? Like if the Democrats and the media have been talking about it for years, and then suddenly on this election, suddenly on this election, we're being told it's the most perfect election ever to happen, and definitely don't talk about anything wrong with the machines, even though before that was perfectly acceptable. But now, no, you don't see why they might still talk about it, even though they might have thought
somebody told me like murder's a problem. Right. But then said, like, you can acknowledge murder's a problem, but also say there's not at all enough evidence to pin this person for the murder, or there's really basically no evidence to pin this person for the murder. And you say that behind closed doors, but then you go on TV and say, I think there's a lot to say here when it comes to this guy being connected to the murder. I mean, he could be the murderer. I mean, it is a decent chance.
Right.
Yeah, there's a difference here because the Dominion lawsuit revealed these internal communications that show that they're changing what they actually believe, and they're knowing that this information is not true, but they're still bringing on people to regurgitate these ideas unopposed with no pushback in order to push these ideas to the audience because that's what their audience wants. They want the partisanship. They want to defend Trump no matter what.
Could you, and hey, at some level there, I see what you're saying, and I agree that's, I'm not a pro Fox guy. I'm not here to defend Fox, but I just think that the lawsuit's kind of ridiculous just because, I mean, like you could say the same thing about our entire media for the most part.
The lawsuit could be for bullshit reasons. It could go nowhere. But what it revealed, I still think, is integral to the ethics of Fox. One of the things it revealed was how Rupert Murdoch was actually revealing information to Trump's campaign about Biden's campaign strategy, about his ads, due to his connections in the business community. That he was taking this information that was not supposed to be distributed and distributing it to them in advance, telling them about Biden's ads before they aired, telling them like, you guys need to up your ad game because this new Biden ad is pretty fire, it's pretty decent, like you guys aren't investing enough in that.
Literally spying on Trump's campaign.
What does that have to do with the media?
Russian disinformation.
What does that have to do with the media? The point about the media.
Well, because like, where do these people get off? Like lecturing or
that's the government. That's not the media. And like, I don't want to get into that debate. But that's like totally separate.
They're taking but they took the government's. That's another example of the media taking the government side and working with the government in a big lie.
When you say the media, you mean specifically like
everything except for
CNN.
Fox, because Fox and OAN and Newsmax were always skeptical of that stuff. Although Fox, I think, more down the middle because some people on Fox gave it credence, like Brett Baer and stuff like that.
You see how every time you like say this, you have to like add like a million of addendums to be like,
there's no
not
addendums.
Fox. Yeah, you just literally made an addendum by saying, well, not Fox, not ION, not this other thing, and not printed media, but specifically like straight up like 3 p.m. CNN.
What is considered mainstream media? Exactly. Yeah.
Is Fox News not mainstream media?
I'm sorry.
Are you saying that Fox News isn't mainstream media?
Well, it's not portrayed that way at all.
Whether or not it's portrayed that way doesn't matter. The most popular news show in the United States is Tucker Carlson, and the most people that sit down to watch news every week is to watch his show on Fox, where he rails against the Democrats.
on the most watched daytime news talk show, which is The View daytime show, they called for arresting Tucker Carlson. That the government should go in and arrest Tucker Carlson.
They all said that they should be arrested. Really? When did that happen?
Yeah, they said Tucker and other people at Fox should be arrested for spreading dangerous misinformation. And that's kind of shit. That's kind of shit they say on that show daily. And this is another little thing I want to throw out there real quick. It just into the pile of stuff I've been throwing onto you, but another thing you see in our media, all throughout the media, except for Fox and OAN and Newsmax, is they'll have Republicans. It's all Democrats. They'll have like one or two Republicans, and those Republicans hate Republicans. And all they ever do is trash Republicans and promote Democrats. That's like every network.
Hey, don't worry, man. Fox News is going to have proud Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard on, man.
Well, I'm saying like there's no Democrat counterpart on any of the other media outlets. I'm just saying, man, like Fox News and those outlets, especially OAN and Newsmax, are considered like fringe. You know, Fox is considered like a right-wing news outlet, and all the other channels, all the institutions, the schools, universities, all teach their students, all pump out to their viewers that Fox News is right-wing media. And we all know right-wing is constantly used as pejorative, so right-wing is bad. And anything you hear from these people, you can just ignore. You can just discount it, which is why the suppression of the Biden laptop story works so well, because half the country was totally willing to just look the other way. And not just that, but like the Biden diary, his daughter's diary. Do you know about that?
No, I don't know about his daughter's diary.
See, that's crazy. That's just crazy. You don't know about that. So there was this diary. If you want to do this, I can name a million different things that Republicans have done that you probably don't know. No, I'm just saying, like the president showered with his daughter and she wrote about it in a diary. And like how's that not huge news?
Why should I know about? Why should I give a fuck?
Why would that not be huge news?
Why should I care about he fucking showered with his daughter?
You don't think that's weird?
Who was riding on Jeffrey Epstein's plane?
His daughter didn't like it.
Who was riding on Jeffrey Epstein's plane?
Is this like a Trump did it thing?
Trump?
I don't care.
I mean, he did. Oh. Why isn't that a bigger story?
That's fine. Dude, I'm not like, if you've noticed, I'm not like a big Trump promoter. What I usually do in my videos is defend him against obvious lies from the media, because my point is to show that the media is not trustworthy. And so like, I'll do that. But like, there's plenty about Trump I don't like. So yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm still baffled by this. Why should I care if Joe Biden showered with his daughter? How old was his daughter? Why should I even care?
That's fucking. It's because.
Why should I care if it's weird?
He's a pedo.
How does that make him a pedophile? That he showered with his daughter? What? Have you bathed your children ever? Do you have kids?
Yeah, but this is an older child. She's like 12 or 13 or something.
I don't care. Why? Who gives a fuck?
Well, my point is not even to get into that. But
you know that one football star that like kisses his kids on the lips. I think it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady kisses a kid, his 13, 14-year-old son, on the lips. Does that make him a pedophile? Is Tom Brady a pedophile now?
No. I don't think I kiss my kids on the lips. I don't kiss my kids on the lips.
Does that make Tom Brady a pedophile? Every time we talk about Tom Brady playing football, should we bring up that he kisses his child, he kisses a little boy on the lips, and we can go, oh, pedophile Tom Brady.
My 8-year-old daughter,
silly, man.
She has total privacy. I do not go into the bath. I don't do 8. All right. This girl was older than that. His daughter was older than that when she made these journal entries.
Okay. You remember
my point in bringing that up was that it's not a major. It
shouldn't be a major news story. That's a stupid fucking story. It shouldn't get any attention.
You're telling me if Trump or like Jim Jordan, if a diary.
Wait. You want to talk about weird relationships with your daughter? Trump has said some pretty weird things, like I would be dating my daughter.
I agree.
That's weird stuff, but I don't care. Who cares?
But that was big news. Everybody knows about that.
Do you think anybody should care about that?
No, but everybody knows about that.
Well,
right?
No. I just want to see if you have.
Yes.
I want to see you're consistent. I want to see you're consistent. You said that. Well, wait.
Everybody knows.
My position is I don't care about his daughter's story, and I don't care about the Biden story. But your standard is Joe Biden's a pedophile because he showered with his daughter. But Joe Biden is Donald Trump. Wait. So Joe Biden's a pedophile because he showered with his daughter, but Donald Trump. Like, we shouldn't know about him, like, having that weird relationship with his daughter. I just don't think any of it's important.
Everybody does. I didn't say we shouldn't know. I said everybody does know. Nobody knows. Only people on the right know about the shower thing because we're reading stuff that is being hidden from the other half of the country.
That's hidden.
That's my point. Absolutely. If the media doesn't report it, for most people, it never happened.
I don't.
Most people are not like us.
Okay,
most
sorry.
People,
Can we? Let's do this. CNN breaking news. CNN breaking news. Startling reports that Joe Biden showered with his daughter. Let's talk about that. Chris Hayes, can you talk about this? This is obviously the darkest day in our democracy to hear that Joe Biden has showered with his daughter. It's like, how would they even cover the story? It's not important. It's not even news.
Look at all these fake stories that the media covered that weren't even real. Like, especially concerning Trump.
If you look at those fake stories, every single one of those fake stories are probably more newsworthy than the idea that Joe Biden showered with his daughter. I don't care. I don't care about the
koi pond with the Japanese prime minister.
That shit was funny though.
Oh, how about the bounties on soldiers story? That was fake. That turned out to be totally fake.
I think it's most likely fake. I didn't follow it too closely, but I didn't see. Have
you ever heard the term drive-by media?
No, I haven't used the term drive-by media. But
it's something Rush Limbaugh.
But okay, so wait. Let me ask you a question. Would it be more newsworthy for Russian soldiers for the Russian government to be placing bounties on the heads of American soldiers, or Joe Biden showered with his 12-year-old daughter?
Both seem like, well, first of all, one has evidence, the other one has no evidence.
Can you answer my question? What would be more?
One has evidence, it is newsworthy. The other has no evidence, it is not.
You're not answering my question. No, you're not, because my question was, if there is a news story about the Russian government placing bounties on American soldiers' head, I'm not telling you if it's real or not real. That versus Joe Biden showering with his 12-year-old daughter. What is more newsworthy and deserving of attention?
So what is a journalist's job?
I'm asking you a straight question, and I want you to answer it straight.
I'm going to answer you. A journalist's job when they're reporting a story, I'm pretty sure you got to have more than one source. And for that story, they had 0 sources. So they went ahead and reported that anyway, just like many others. But when it comes to the Joe Biden diary story, which has evidence, hard evidence, they report nothing. It's literally blank. And when it comes to Hunter Biden and his laptop and the connections that it might show between business dealings between him and his father that are shady, the media, just before an election, big tech and the government worked to suppress it, called it Russian disinformation, called anybody who was spreading it spreaders of Russian disinformation and conspiracy kooks, and then it turned out to be real.
Didn't answer my question at all.
I did.
No, you didn't. Fuck, I'll ask you for the 3rd time, and if you don't answer it, we're just gonna have to move on, okay?
All right.
If there are 2 stories, and one of them is the Russian government is placing bounties on the head of American soldiers, killing American soldiers, people are dying, versus Joe Biden showering with his 12-year-old daughter, what is a news story more worthy of coverage?
The one with evidence to back it up.
You didn't answer my question. We just got to move on. You can't answer.
Did.
No, because my question.
The Biden story is a more worthy story.
God, I can't engage with you. Okay, so my question is about the veracity of the narrative of this story. That if you are a journalist and you're handed these 2 pieces of paper, you see the thing about American soldiers dying due to the Russian government, you're gonna cover that, whether or not that's
this is just now. It's different.
This is separate.
That's all it is.
You're not answering my question.
I hear you.
Okay, this is separate
it.
from the amount of evidence to back up these 2 stories. I'm just presenting you story A and story B, right? And I need you to answer this question, or we cannot talk.
You want me to say that the Russian bounty story is
because it obviously is. It obviously is. And so if there was,
from your point of view.
From your point of view, so you're thinking there's a scenario there's a scenario where American soldiers dying is less important than Joe Biden showering with his 12-year-old daughter.
But the story wasn't that soldiers were dying; it was that there was a bounty on them.
What do you think that leads to?
Well, right, but first of all, there's no soldiers dying connected to any bounties, for one, right?
But if they're placing bounties on American soldiers, that's endangering the lives of American soldiers, and getting them killed.
Right. Okay, so you're saying it endangers their lives. You see, it reminds me of what we hear from the media when it comes to criticism. It endangers our lives. Is there any examples of that actually endangering your life? No. But
is there examples of bounties being placed upon the heads of Americans endangering them? Yes, there is.
In Iraq, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that's happened before, and so if it happens again, that would be of concern, wouldn't it?
Okay, well, so the problem with that is that, and you're saying that the other one was more important story, so they should have gone with that. But the problem is they had no evidence.
Wait, no. I didn't. That's not what I said. You never answered my question. I didn't say anything. You just didn't answer my question, so I never got to make a point.
Though.
No, your point was to avoid the question every time you avoided it. No, your question. No, the way you're supposed to answer it is say this one or this one, and I'm separating it from the evidence backing it. Okay, got you. So you believe that dead Americans is less important than being able to call Joe Biden a pedophile. Americans getting killed by Taliban fighters on the back of Russian bounties placed upon American heads. That would be less important than Joe Biden showering with his 12-year-old daughter.
Which dead soldiers have been linked to bounties?
This is you're oh my fucking god. I'm talking about if we put these two stories next to each other, what would be more important if we isolate the story, not the evidence, not what actually happened. What am I talking about? Isolating the story. And because I'm talking to you about what would be more important to cover in a newsroom, because then I can move on to the second point, my actual point of what I'm trying to get to. If you answer this question honestly, A or B, that's the two options.
Right, I already said A.
Okay,
so B's got no evidence to back it up.
Okay,
and B, they like that story better because they could damage Trump with it, which is the only reason they went with it.
Okay, so
which is why they went with tons of. Hold on, Dylan, and I'm gonna tell you that they reported tons of fake stories during that 4 years. Why? Because when it comes to getting the Republicans owning the right, they fell for it every time. That's why story after story, like the Covington kids, they got them wrong. The noose for Bubba Wallace or whatever his name was, story after story where they got it wrong because it fit their biases, it fit their narrative, and so they went with it despite no evidence. The story you're talking about, you keep saying it's more important. It only is important if it's got evidence to back it up. If somebody comes to the media with a story that says, oh, Vladimir Putin has super soldiers and they're targeting American soldiers right now, and Trump actually funded that. We heard that he funded that privately through back channels. We have to report this. There's no evidence for it, but it's so. Do
you have problems with? Can you just like not answer hypotheticals? Do you know like hypotheticals and like you can use hypotheticals like advanced conversations, right?
Right.
Right. So here's my hypothetical for you. Okay, you are presented two stories, nothing else. These are two stories. We're not talking about the evidence or anybody presenting you intelligence reports or anybody handing you the diary. And there's two stories. There's two. I can't even ask. You can't engage with the question because I think you know where I'm going to go with this.
No, I can engage.
So you want to avoid where I want to go with this.
I get what you're trying to get me to say. I get what you're trying to get me to say. You want me to say that the other story is more important, and so that's why you can excuse them for getting it wrong.
No, that's not why I can excuse them for getting it wrong. I don't excuse them for getting it wrong. My point is, media makes mistakes, and they get stuff wrong. They report stuff wrong all the time, and it's wrong, and they should be critical. Can this other person shut the fuck up? I'm not talking to them. I'm not talking to this other person. I'm not talking to two people at once.
Quiet, Jacob.
Okay,
Jacob,
and they got to get a better mic. I can't even hear what they're saying. So
yeah, I didn't invite anybody. By the way.
It's fine. If they want to jump in and talk to me afterwards, that's fine. But I don't want to talk to like 3, 4, 5 people at the same time. I can't do it. It's too many people.
Absolutely. I don't want you to. Good.
My main point with this thing is a journalist can get a story wrong and be genuinely wrong on a story, either on accident or they could be liars or any number of things. But whether or not they can get a story wrong, that doesn't affect the if them getting a story wrong doesn't mean that necessarily that that person talking to me. I completely lost my fucking train of thought. Give me a second. So
I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying.
So if they I didn't get my point across.
Okay, go ahead.
So if they got the story wrong, they fucked up. They should be penalized for that. People should be held accountable to that, whether that's getting fired, whether that's being demoted, whether that's being whatever. But when we talk about the original story, which was the Russian government was planting bounties on the heads of American soldiers, that's a pretty big fucking story. And so if you believe that story is true, and or you even if you're wrong about that and you report on that, that is a story that you believe deserves coverage. There is no scenario where if you believe that story is real and then you have the other story and it's Joe Biden showered with his 12-year-old daughter and you have these two things next to each other, that you're going to come to the conclusion that the showering of the daughter story is more important and deserves more coverage. I don't believe the showering with the daughter story even deserves coverage in the first place.
Like, I don't even, it's such a weird hypothetical.
It isn't even a hypothetical. What I just described is what happened. But the point I'm trying to make is when you talk about these two things and comparing these two things, them reporting on a story that ended up being false does not prove that they just didn't care about the showering story because of Joe Biden, because look, they're pushing all these fake stories. It could be that they pushed the fake story for profit. It could be that they got it wrong genuinely and it was a mistake. It could be any number of scenarios where they genuinely believe the story was real, pushed it and got it wrong, or they were deceiving people and they were getting out there to get money. It could be any number of things, but that does not mean necessarily that the Joe Biden showering daughter story, if compared with this thing that they could have possibly believed in or wanted to lie about, deserved more coverage.
Here's the thing. So you're right. The media gets it wrong sometimes, but why is it? Do you think it's just a coincidence that every single time that they get something wrong, it always cuts against their political opponents every time? I cannot think, and this is gonna be another example. I honestly think I got you on this one. You're not gonna be able to find a single example.
Yet, but maybe this one will be the time you get me.
You're not. Yeah. Well, I think your examples were like, I expect you'd be able to find like a website story, but I'm talking about like television narratives that.
Okay,
like,
can we not do too many search quests? I hate fresh quests in video games and I hate fresh quests in real life, but
all right, well, I'm just saying, like, there's no example of the media reporting this big story and then it like about Democrats that hurts Democrats and then it turns out to be wrong. Like that, I cannot think of a single example of that happening, but I can think of dozens. I have a list here of dozens where they get it wrong and it cuts against Republicans. Like, why does that keep happening? Why is that a pattern, do you think?
So you don't think there's never been a time when the media got stuff on Biden wrong? There hasn't been a time that that's happened?
No. Like what?
Like what?
Like a story that they were going after Biden on, like that was like negative, which there aren't many. Like the Afghanistan thing, they kind of did. And you know what? It's funny because I was earlier before you got on here, I was actually giving you credit because I was talking about the press conference today about the Afghanistan report that came out. They gave it to the reporters like 10 minutes before the press conference. And actually like Ed O'Keefe from CBS and a few others from the network media called him out on it and was like, why are you blaming Trump? Why aren't you taking responsibility? So, you know, that is actually an example of where I think that's an example where they can't get away from doing that. But it does chip a little hole in my case here, but it's like one example.
What about the Tara Reid allegations?
Tara Reid?
You remember Tara Reid?
I do remember that name.
Tara Reid said that Joe Biden raped her.
Right.
And that was covered all the way, and it was like covered wall to wall in many media outlets. But was there any evidence ever presented for it?
Yeah, I think so.
What evidence?
Well, first of all, believe all women, right?
No.
Well, that's what the Democrats say.
Well, that's not what I say. Like, I do believe the idea that most people who come forward are probably not lying, right? I do believe that, and I do believe that we should help victims, but I don't think you should just automatically believe somebody because they come forward. No.
So what I'm reading here, and there was actually a big media blackout on that.
You should listen to all women. That's a better way to put it. Listen to all women.
Right, okay. I am reading about the Tara Reid thing. I do remember it. It wasn't that long ago. God, so much stuff happens. It's like hard to keep up with this stuff. But from what I'm reading here, and I do kind of remember that there was like a blackout on that story for a long time. And they didn't really it never really got covered that heavy. No, I don't think that's a good example.
Neither did the Russian bounty program because it didn't have any weight to it, but it was covered. It was repeated even though they didn't really have any evidence to back it up.
No, but the media didn't, though. That's the thing, is that they didn't. Like, that was never a big thing. I'm sorry. I'm looking right now, and I don't.
The thing is, when we talk about the Russian bounty program, it was never completely disproven. It's just they never could corroborate it. Corroborate it. Just like you couldn't corroborate Tara Reid's story, but it was still covered in the story. It was still covered in the media.
Right, but it was covered. But it was covered like it. I guess it's like for someone, and this is kind of a cop out, but like I feel like I'm so obsessed with this shit. I'm in it day in, day out, that I have a sort of sense of the way things are, and it's like unless you're that glued to it, you can't tell. I don't know. Like, so
you want a different example?
You're bringing up the Tara Reid thing. That was in 2020. Like, Democrats have been in charge of this country for how long now? Yet the coverage is almost it's like always Republicans. It's always Trump.
What about the burger story? The idea that Joe Biden's new climate plan was going to ban burgers. Burgers are going to be banned. Fox News actually had to issue a correction live. John Roberts had to, admitting that the graphics that they were displaying, saying that he was going to like ban burgers and stuff and ban red meat, was false.
I mean, okay. I don't think that's like, I'm talking about like big media narratives, like the Kavanaugh gang rape thing, stuff like that really takes up like multiple days of media drumbeats. You know what I mean?
You see how frustrating this is from my perspective, right? Where I'm like, I'm supposed to find these things on the fly, multiple things, and like after multiple examples.
Hey, you're doing a good job.
And I'm finding things and I'm throwing them at you. Although, and it's like, oh, that's not good enough. Oh, that one's not good enough either. And it's like, oh,
Tara Reid, like who could tell you who Tara Reid is?
A lot of people could tell me Tara Reid is. I've heard a lot from a lot of people that Joe Biden's a rapist. For example, people told me that Joe Biden
takes showers with his daughter.
Dude, that doesn't say anything. I don't know what about his relationship with his daughter. What am I supposed to take from that?
My point is like, if these
did the diary say he molested her?
I don't think so.
No, it
said that the diary said that she felt uncomfortable taking showers because she was afraid her dad would come in and get in with her. Which is weird because that's kind of how Biden is. You've seen how he is with these kids. People have been pointing it out for years.
He's a very he's a handsy guy. He believes in affection, but that doesn't mean he's a pedophile. And that's the way that people talk about him. People talk about him
If Trump's daughter had a diary entry and said he was
to be clear,
you don't think that would be something that was talked about? The grab the pussy thing is still a thing. They still talk about that. You're telling me they wouldn't talk about showering with his daughter? Dude, come on.
Maybe they would have.
Dude, and you know what? That's another thing we talked about in the last debate is that like when it comes to like political violence, the media likes to make like anniversaries of incidents that happen at so-called right-wing protests, but never the other side. Like it's like it happens and it's off to the memory hole forever. Like the Charlottesville thing, they were using that like this big thing, even though it was like a white guy who was being mobbed by his car that he took off and ran over another white person. It wasn't necessarily like politically driven. It was
wait. Are you telling me that the person who rammed his car into a crowd at Charlottesville wasn't politically driven? The dude
didn't ram his car.
He did. Do you want to?
He had his car.
We can't look at the footage on stream, but he ran over like 18, 20 people.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, he did.
People.
Yes, he did.
I remember the footage.
Yes, he did.
Like distinctly. Do you want
to? I'm so confident in this. Do you want to watch it off stream?
No, I don't want to. But okay,
I am so confident on this. I'll watch it right now off stream on myself. 1 second.
All right, like a guy ran over a bunch of people at a Christmas parade. Do you think the media is going to constantly remind us of that? Do you think the guy who did that right after the Kyle Rittenhouse ruling and was showing a lot of disdain for the Kyle Rittenhouse ruling on his Twitter feed before he did that, like, and that's another example of the media. Like the media lied in multiple occasions about police shootings because they jumped the gun, like the hands up, don't shoot thing. They incited riots that led to real death and destruction. Yet there's no media narrative about like. It. I'm sorry.
Sorry, somebody rated me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're good. But there's no like media narrative that like their rhetoric leads to violence and is dangerous, right? But if they're constantly talking about the dangerous rhetoric of the Republicans, they're saying things that we don't like, so we're going to call it dangerous and threatening as a pretext for either you ignoring it as a viewer or as a pretext for the government suppressing it in some way.
So I'm going to put an image of it on screen, right? Because I can't show the footage because somebody dies in the footage. I'll show an image before someone dies.
Right, but okay. But are you trying to make the case that are you trying to make the case that this justifies the media's commemorating of this as an event that they talk about every year?
Well, first, I just want to make sure that nobody thinks that this guy just accidentally ran into him. He was a fascist terrorist.
He was surrounded by people, right?
He was a fascist terrorist. No, he wasn't. He drove into the crowd. He was out of the crowd and he drove into the crowd, ran over multiple people.
Right, that's not my understanding. So let's see the picture.
I'm showing it on stream. If you want, I can save it.
No, don't show me. Yeah, don't show me. I'll take your word for it. But regardless of that, I mean, that's not that unusual. I mean, during the
dude was charged, wasn't he? Wasn't he found guilty? And,
right? No, he was. He was charged with murder. He's in prison right now.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, like, is that a reason to commemorate that as like some sort of like the Democrats and the media every year commemorate that just like they do January 6th
I don't even.
Now.
Do you when was Charlottesville? Do you remember what day it was on or what month even?
It was
So I have no clue because I don't know about
I
this
couldn't tell you the
commemoration.
exact date, but every year they talk about it. Every year.
So if they
bring it
talk about it every year,
2017.
okay. Well, I know it happened in 2017, but like what month, what year? If they commemorate it every year, I would imagine we would have an
August or
idea.
September,
We talk about it
June
like
or
we would talk
July.
about it like 9/11, right? Like 9/11, never forget.
Well, we
But
talk about January 6th that way, don't we?
yeah, but we remember January 6th, don't we? It was January 6th. I don't
Well,
remember Charlottesville.
everybody
what day
remember. They
Charlottesville
don't
happened.
commemorate Charlottesville. They don't commemorate Charlottesville by the date. They commemorate it by the name.
Okay,
Charlottesville.
well,
And they also, hey, hold on. They also commemorate it with multiple lies, including that Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people, which is a lie that
So,
Joe Biden still to this day.
I think that Charlottesville deserves cover. I don't know if it deserves the amount of coverage, but it deserves coverage. When we talk about what happened,
Not
we had
not
a bunch of
coverage,
people.
commemoration. Commemoration.
I think we should remember it. I think white nationalism is a real problem that can be reflected upon. When we talk about Charlottesville, what happened there?
What about communist mob violence?
Can I finish?
Yeah.
So when we talk about Charlottesville, like the whole thing was like out of a movie, right? The night before, we got people marching with tiki torches, yelling "Jews will not replace us," marching for the Robert E. Lee
did look
statue.
right out of a movie, didn't
right?
it?
It
did look right out of a movie, didn't it?
It looked crazy. It was
kind of
crazy.
weird, huh?
Is this like a conspiracy that it was like organized by the CIA or something?
I gotta tell you, man. When I first saw that video, my immediate thought was like, "What the hell is this? Like, this does not look real. It looks like something I would see in a movie." Just like you just said, like that's exactly the way I thought of it too. Just like these Patriot Front protests, which nobody knows who this group are. Nobody on the right supports them.
Well,
they show
the Patriot
up fully
Front
geared,
actually,
fully masked.
I know what the group are. The Patriot Front actually was a group that came out of, the guy who drove into the crowd. The PR from that event was so heavy that the organization he was a part of, some white nationalist like neo-Nazi group, shut down and reformed, and that's where this organization came from. It came from actually the guy who murdered that woman and drove into the crowd. That's why they popped out of nowhere. It's because they abolished their old group because of the bad press, and then opened this new group.
Well, I mean, like, why don't they commemorate like Dallas in 2005 when that BLM protest was calling for violence against police, and then the guy showed up and gunned down multiple police on video? That's not commemorated, is it?
I don't know if it's talked
not
about
nobody.
as much.
Nobody knows about it. Everybody's forgotten about it.
I don't think everybody's forgotten about it. I remember it.
How about like the attack I showed you, where the police were protecting the Christopher Columbus statue in Chicago, and that black bloc communist mob of Antifa and BLM were attacking them with actual like spears and rocks.
Okay. So obviously
fireworks.
Not every single riot is going to get the same amount of coverage on the same scale. But let me finish. Let me finish a point.
Dylan, it follows a pattern.
I gotta finish a single point. But do you remember the Summer of Love? You hear that all the time, right? The violent summer that the BLM descended on America as every CPS across the country spontaneously burst into flames, right? Even though the vast majority of the protests were peaceful, but the violent ones, due to the size of the protests, were.
You give me a state media excuse as part of your argument.
I'm not giving a state media excuse. You got to let me finish my point, and then maybe you would hear it. Due to the size of the protests, if even 5% of them were violent, right? It was that's a lot of violent protests, a lot of rioting, and a lot of property damage, and got a lot of coverage. And every single time January 6th is brought up, that then gets brought up immediately after. Or every time that's brought up, January 6th is brought up immediately after, either by.
Or how about the attack on the White House in December of 20 or it was fuck, I don't remember the date. I want to say December 2020, but I don't think that is when it was.
Dude, can we stay on like one? Can we stay on like one thing at a time? We keep moving around.
But
so
I'm just
fucking
telling
frequently.
you. I'm showing you example after example after example of left wing and then significant violence that just gets shot down the memory hole, whereas the much rarer right wing violence is commemorated every year.
How do you think everybody remembers the Buffalo shooting very well? Do you think everybody remembers all the details about it? I don't think so. I think shootings happen.
They should remember that.
I don't think most people remember all the details of the Buffalo shooting or remember much about the Buffalo. The thing is, these shootings happen so frequently. I think they all like merge together. You know?
Yeah, in a way, but like that's not my point. My point is that the media outside of Fox, OAN and Newsmax commemorate they ignore left-wing violence, they let it fall down the memory hole, whereas they take any instance of right-wing violence and they exaggerate it and hyperbolically repeat it. They commemorate it as a yearly thing. It's a solemn attack on our democracy. Like literally, we had over 120,000 people show up to the Capitol. Around 300, maybe less, started fighting with riot police. Then people were just let in, and there were around 900 people who walked in, just walked around and walked out. That's the extent of January 6th. Like, it was literally mostly peaceful. But have you ever heard that?
There was like bombs planted the night before. There were like pipe bombs planted.
Right, the pipe bombs. That's weird. Cameras everywhere, and yet they don't know who this person is. There's no talk of him really. It's just like Ray Epps. Ray Epps, who is on video multiple times inciting people, telling people to go to the Capitol and into the Capitol. Hold on. And then the media calls it a conspiracy theory to call him a strange, questionable figure. The Democrats come to his. That. No, they did.
Nobody said, it's a conspiracy to even ask
the New York Times and stop. The New York Times, multiple outlets wrote articles casting Ray Epps as a victim of right-wing conspiracy theories, and Raskin and a couple other Democrats during hearings came to his first said they didn't know who he was, then came to his defense saying that he was just some guy there and that he's a victim of right-wing conspiracy theories and that the Republicans should lay off of him because we're so mean that we can't get many followers and we need all we can get. That's what Raskin said. This is a guy who is on video telling people to go into the Capitol, and yet he's not charged, while grandmas with cancer who are dying of cancer who just walked around and left are doing prison time. So the fact that the media and the Democrats are united and the government are united in defending this guy is weird as fuck. You don't think so?
I'm sorry. You said so many things. You brought up so many examples. I don't know what to address. You brought up like 22 different examples. What am I even supposed to fucking talk about?
Let's just talk about Ray Epps.
I don't. Wait. No, I want to talk about. I want to talk about the thing we were talking about before that. I want to talk about the pipe bombs. Why? Why is the pipe bombs now all of a sudden like that's a conspiracy? Like that was like the government did it or somebody else did it?
Because there's been like no effort. It's like the media.
There's been no effort.
Hold on. The government, the Democrats, the media portrayed January 6th as the worst thing since the Civil War. Karen Jean-Pierre said that multiple times. That was the worst thing that happened in this country since the Civil War. Yet, one, they don't care about Ray Epps, and two, they don't care about the pipe bomber.
Ray Epps again.
And when the FBI released the footage of the pipe bomber after it was requested, and they drug their feet forever, they released like the worst possible quality video.
Wow, so you mean they have bad quality video? Almost like that was
no. It was like
so they have better quality video
that you would expect in the early 90s.
So you're saying they have better quality video stored away that they won't release?
They purposely lowered the quality. We know this now.
We know this?
It's a fact. Yep.
Who said that? Who reported this?
It's a fact because they.
It's a fact.
Later after getting pressed on it, they released higher quality.
Okay, that's good then. Then they released the higher quality. So what's the fucking problem?
Okay, only after pressed on it. Why were they scared to release the higher quality?
I don't know if they were scared to release the high quality or release shitty quality.
They don't want to say or do much about anything with this.
Wait, okay.
The pipe bomber is weird, but not for the reasons that you think.
Okay, I think maybe
Ray Epps is a similar figure. Ray Epps is a similar figure.
You love the sound of your own voice. You can't let anybody else talk ever, can you?
Dude, I've been letting you talk all night.
You've talked for 80% of this conversation. Every time I like start a sentence,
you're right. I have talked for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So my problem when we talk about, oh, that's suspicious, oh, that's suspicious, and we're jumping from thing to thing to thing, it's 100% possible that this guy who placed these pipe bombs just didn't get caught. Like he was masked up, he placed the bombs the night before, and he was outie. And in all the chaos of the day after, when they were trying to capture all these people who didn't cover the face and wasn't outie, that they didn't catch the guy. They don't know who the guy was, and they'll never catch him. That's 100% a possibility. It's actually a sad fact. There's a lot of terrorist attacks around the world, or a lot of violent crime around the world, never get prosecuted. They never catch the guy, and they get away scot-free. Happens with rape all the times. Happens with all sorts of sorts and different types of crimes. There's no reason for me to believe that just because they haven't caught this guy with all of the tension around January 6th, that necessarily means it was like a government plot, or even like suggest to me that it's a government plot.
Right. That's not what makes me think that they haven't caught him. What makes me think that is that a media who calls January 6th in the government that calls January 6th the worst thing to happen since Civil War has made almost no effort or that we can see to find out who this person is.
Can I ask a question?
Just like Ray Epps. It's just like Ray Epps.
What was the thing that they were trying to hide with the low quality video? Because if there was this conspiracy and it wasn't just, okay, here's the higher quality stuff, hopefully you can do something with this. If it was a conspiracy, then something must have been revealed once they made it higher quality, right?
Well, that's the assumption. Why did they release that?
What was revealed?
Intentionally lowered the quality of the video, Dylan.
How do you know they intentionally, or was it just compressed?
Right. It was like
it was video compressed,
to like the lowest quality it could possibly be.
I think
it was like a 10-second video, Dylan.
Have you met
Why
the
would
feds?
That need to be compressed, Dylan?
Have you met the feds?
Dylan,
like they are some pretty incompetent people, definitely when it comes to technology. And the idea that they could have released compressed video, then they released the full. You know what they could have done? They could have ignored you. Give us the clean video. No, I don't need to do shit. Fuck you. They could have done that, but they didn't. They released the high quality footage. What did it reveal? What did it reveal?
Well, nothing yet.
Okay, so it didn't reveal anything.
Maybe there's a detail in
there.
So
what were they hiding?
Maybe there's a detail.
So what were they hiding? What's the detail?
I don't know, but like, look at. I don't know if you can see the stream right now, but I'm showing you a New York Times article about Ray Epps, where so the same media that January 6th is the worst thing to ever happen. Suddenly, the guy who's on video telling people to go in the Capitol, he's a victim. What's up with that? And Ray Epps is just like, it's a similar thing to the pipe bomber, where it's odd that there's not the same energy put into these two things. Why is that? Why are they defending Ray Epps?
I only know the names of three of the Capitol, like police, like the Capitol stormers. I know the QAnon Shaman. I know Ashley Babbitt,
who just got released from prison. You know that, right?
Yeah, he's been released in prison. Was it under home arrest, or was it like?
No, he was in prison. He was in prison. Then he got out early, and you know why?
Good behavior, right?
No. Because those videos. Because Tucker.
It didn't.
Because
Fuck
Tucker's
off.
video.
No, that's not true.
That's why.
Prove it. I'll give you $100 if you prove it to me right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, I will. It's because when the trial was going on for him, they did not present that footage to the defense. They were not given that footage.
And the footage doesn't change anything.
It does.
It doesn't change anything. It changes absolutely nothing. Everything that's talked about in the trial itself is shown in that
Why
video.
didn't they give it to the defense then?
There's nothing that's shown in that video that was different from what they knew at the time of the trial. And that's what the judge even said afterwards when they were asking for a retrial.
Judges can lie.
Okay, so what was shown in that video that was different than what they already talked about in the trial? Because people thought, oh, they escorted them. They talked about that, and they talked about that in the trial. That was one of the defenses that they tried to use, and it didn't work.
The video was not in the trial. It was not part of the trial.
Yeah, I know it wasn't part of the trial, but what was revealed by the video?
Why did they hide that video?
They didn't hide the video. They released the video.
You're asking me what did
they released
reveal?
it. We've seen the video.
They hid it.
So we know that what do you mean they hid it? They released it. We see it. So obviously we've seen it.
Begrudgingly, years later, after the committee, and then they claimed that Tucker Carlson was a threat to democracy for showing it.
I don't think he was a threat to democracy.
Did you not see that huge media offensive?
It wasn't a threat for democracy for showing it, but his way he covered it was unbelievably dishonest, trying to paint the QAnon Shaman like some fucking martyr, just some like lowly man who just wandered into the Capitol, had no clue what he was doing.
The media painted him opposite, absurdly.
I think he should have been penalized. I think he deserved to go to prison. That's my opinion. I don't think the thing is I was there on January 6th. I was there on January 6th.
He was nonviolent. He was nonviolent. I know you were. He was nonviolent.
Just because he's nonviolent, what does that mean? He was nonviolent. You can commit crimes that are not violent crimes.
He was on public property.
That's slime. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The White House is public property because the public technically owns it. Get out of here.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. So if I run into the White House, should I get arrested?
Is it different when Democrats take over?
Wait, no. I'm not letting you pivot from this. So you're saying if I go to the White House and I just like storm into like Biden's office, like if they arrest me or like charge me with a crime,
are you saying if I go to the Supreme Court and I just storm?
Can you answer that question?
If I just storm in during confirmation hearings, is that okay?
No, I don't think it's okay.
Oh, but they did.
I don't think
they did do that.
Please answer a question. You're pivoting with more questions. You're avoiding my questions.
Right.
He committed a crime. He committed a crime by storming the Capitol, and
what crime?
He helped stop the process of the election. That's what he was charged with too. He helped stop.
Jacob. Stop.
He stopped the certification process. He's helped slow down the certification process with other people by storming the Capitol, going in there and creating a mess with everybody else. That's exactly what he was charged with, and that's what he pled guilty to.
Well, he pled guilty. I'll tell you, I got accused of a crime once that I was completely 100% innocent of, but I got scared about what they could do to me if they found me guilty. So I took the plea and pled guilty to disturbing the peace charge.
I feel so bad for this guy, I feel terrible for this guy because you know what's going to happen? They're going to make this guy
you that he pled guilty because he had
They're going to make him into a martyr, and they're going to take this guy who might have some semblance of trying to live something like a normal life, and he's going to be doing media tours, and the rest of his life he's just going to be known as a QAnon shaman because now he's going to be seen as the martyr, and he's going to be encouraged to go out there and do these media tours, and now for the rest of his life he's going to be defined by the time he stormed the Capitol. I can see it from a mile away happening.
Storm the Capitol is a media talking point, a Democrat media talking point.
Yeah, well, they stormed the Capitol. They went Capitol. There were multiple police lines. They had to break through. They injured over 150 police officers breaking through them. Multiple police. I think there was 3, 4, 5 police lines they broke through before smashing windows and crawling in there and then stopping the certification process for hours.
Most people were let in.
As the legislators had to then flee the building.
They were long gone by that time, but just so you know, they were long gone. There was no danger.
I don't believe they were all long gone. I don't actually think that's the case. I remember there was actually a certain moment where Mitt Romney was running in the wrong direction. He almost started interacting with the people, and one of the Capitol police officers had to direct him in the other way because he almost ran to the protesters. And I got to be honest, I don't think those protesters would have treated politician Mitt Romney very well.
What do you think about the gallows? If you do a search for gallows,
I don't really care
January
about that.
6th. Well, hold on. It's a good example of the media being fucking liars. If you look, you're gonna see a million.
Is that what
articles?
Is this what this?
Hold on.
Is this what this?
You're gonna see a million articles about it. You're gonna see pictures that are deceitfully taken. The TV media did the same thing. That fucking thing was a miniature art display. It was not capable of hanging anyone.
I agree that the gallows that they erected was not something that could actually effectively hang Mike Pence. Right,
it was not functional. It was a display.
It was not
unusual.
Gallows, yeah.
Right. If you remember, well, you don't because you were too young. But the Bush years, that kind of thing was common. Seeing Bush hanging.
Do you think
guillotines?
Do you think those gallows though could be symbolic of what the message they were trying to get across?
Well, sure, but again, it's not
what do you think
new.
What type of message do you get across with a gallows, do you think?
Well, what type of message do you get with a guillotine? I mean, that was common during the Bush protests.
Well, yeah, you're saying kill the rich, probably, yeah, or something along those lines, right? Yeah, and I would think a gallows probably means kill somebody. So wait.
Yeah, essentially,
what is a gallows made? A gallows is used to hang people, right? That's what a gallows is supposed to do.
Absolutely.
So if they are erecting a gallows, who is the person that's supposed to be gallowed in this scenario?
Right. Well, I don't really care about that.
So why'd you bring it up? Why did you bring it up?
Say whoever you want, but my point is,
don't bring it up if you don't want to talk about it.
No. My point is that the precedence for that sort of protest has already been set for years, decades by Democrats. So don't then come to me and complain that the precedent that Democrats said has now you're upset that the other side is doing the same thing. That's the problem with a lot of this stuff is that Democrats set a precedent and then Republicans do it and it's a problem. And it's but you guys already set that standard.
So Democrats usually don't elect gallows, as far as I'm aware. I know socialists that elect gallows and communists that elect not gallows. I mean like guillotines and stuff. I don't really know many Democrats that elect guillotines. What Democrat chapter elected a guillotine?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can.
I think Nevada, the Nevada chapter of Democrat, when they were taken over by socialists, they changed their logo to kind of look like a guillotine, and they recently changed it back because they said it was too inflammatory.
Dude. I'm just talking about props. I'm just talking about props at a protest. That's it.
Okay, but it's not. That's not a Democrat thing. That's a socialist. That's a communist.
Well, okay. Well, whatever. Democrat protests against Bush, all through the early 2000s, commonly had guillotines and nooses hanging Bush or burning Bush in effigy. And then none of that and then the Tea Parties came out against Obama. They were horrible racists. The media hated them. And then Trump gets elected. Suddenly election denial is cool again. And violence at the inauguration is cool again, which happened. But we don't get nobody remembers that, right? The inauguration, right? That happened at Trump's inauguration injured 60 Secret Service agents.
Wait, Let me ask you a question about the gallows. So the gallows were erected, and I think the reason people talk about it, the reason why I don't mention it because I don't think it's an important detail really. But if I was to talk about it, what I could use it to signal is the theme and the feeling in the crowd that day was not one of joy, was not one of happiness, but was one that wanted to get shit done. They were angry, they were pissed, they were angry at the establishment. They believed the election was stolen. They was called the Stop the Steal rally, and they wanted to water the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants. That was the general vibe of January 6th that day, and I felt it while I was there. I wore a Biden hoodie, and I gotta say, not a warm reception. Not a warm reception. And they were violent that day, and they went through with that violence that day. I don't, like, at the end of the day, I don't really care about a gallows or a guillotine. I think it's inflammatory. It's not something I would do, but I think it's only used when it comes to the January 6th. Or it should only be used, I guess is the better way to put it. It should only be used to kind of show the feeling of on the ground during that event, which was one of, I would say, a lot of malice and anger and, you know, Tree of Liberty moments. By the way, that whole event was insane. The fact that event shouldn't even been happening at the first place, the J6 event. The whole event was based around the idea that the election was stolen and that needed to go to the Capitol in order to, quote unquote, stop the steal, which meant pressuring Mike Pence into doing something that he didn't even have the legal authority to do, so he didn't even do it. He couldn't have done it. The whole event, the only reason it happened was because Donald Trump was pushing nonsense for months up to January 6th about the election being stolen, whether it be the bamboo paper, the voting machines, or whether it be any of the other the things that he pushed online that ended up not being true. Do you think the event should have happened in the first place? Drone Deck, you there?
You know, I don't care what happened on January 6th. You know, it's just, I just don't really care about that, you know.
Okay. Who are you?
Sorry about that. I had to go.
Oh.
Sorry, I was about to burst. I had to step away there real quick. But do you mind if we open this up to one at a time who want to maybe ask you something, Dylan?
Sure, why not?
All right, guys, one at a time, please. Anybody who wants to come to Discord and maybe ask Dylan a question, you're welcome here. And but please, one at a time. Do not mop him. If that starts, I'm just going to kick everybody out.
All right,
Dylan,
no gallows.
Okay. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, Dylan, I just want to ask you this. You've heard of Hans Hope, right? The libertarian. He says that democracy is a form of modern communism. What do you think about that?
I disagree.
Democracy is a form of modern communism?
I disagree. I mean, like, communism is about workers owning the means of production. Also, like, wasn't communism developed by Karl Marx way after the development of what is considered modern parliamentary democracy? Like, definitely representative democracy in the United States. So wouldn't communism be the modern form of democracy? Wouldn't it be the other way around, since communism is more modern than democracy? I mean, democracy goes all the way back to Athens.
Well, the reason why I say that is because I don't believe in some of the democracy, because I think it's a form of mob rule and a form of dictatorship of the majority. I don't feel that the majority should have a say over the minority. And Hans Hope has actually been skeptical of democracy because of the abuse of power can be done. He says this in the book Democracy, the God That's Failed.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, this is part of the reason why I believe we need, like, certain civil rights protection. And it's part of the reason why I like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and why, like, there's a lot of things about America I really love, and the Bill of Rights is one of those things, because it enshrines certain protections where, you know, the United States government can't just say, oh, we all voted, and it looks like you no longer get your guns. And it's like, no, actually, that's not, you can't do that. We have the Second Amendment. You cannot do that. I want to ban you saying that offensive thing about the church or about this or about that. No, we have the First Amendment, so that protects you. And these things are put in place so we hopefully would not descend completely into mob rule and just completely go after those who hold unpopular opinions or are part of minority groups. The First Amendment is meant to protect controversial speech. It was never meant to protect somebody saying, I like pie. And so that's why I believe in like civil rights protections. And I also believe in, you know, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and things like the First and Second Amendment. And like, you know.
I like that. Sorry about that. Yeah, do you have any more to say? I just want to say something else.
Yeah, I just I would say democracies have produced some of the most successful and flourishing societies on the planet. If you look at the countries that are more authoritarian on average, or the other types of systems that have been developed around the world, democracies have developed the most prosperous societies on Earth. Whether you look at general living standards, the health of the population, life expectancy, it's not even close when you compare it to the average autocracy.
Yeah, but Dylan, what you were saying earlier, I agree with. In our country isn't even a democracy. We're a constitutional republic with democratically elected representatives.
Isn't that a type of democracy?
No, I mean there's a democratic
version
process.
of it. Yeah,
it's a type of democracy.
There's a democratic process to elect our representatives who are supposed to be more knowledgeable and sophisticated and better positioned to make decisions for everyone else. I always use the example of a family of 2 parents and 3 children voting for what dinner should be. And of course, if it was a democracy, you know, the parents would always lose to the children. And so that's really not what we have in this country. But I wanted to press you on Drone Tech's main point.
Wait, can I respond to that quickly? So
sure.
The reason why I like democracy is societies are unbelievably complex. Part of the reason why the Soviet economy failed is that you just could not plan how complicated the economy is. And the same thing is true when you talk about all the interconnected parts that make societies, economies, and nation states function. And so it is very difficult for anybody to be sitting in any office with and trying to make decisions on how while you're sitting in Baltimore, how somebody in all the other parts of Maryland or all the other parts of the country should be governed. And so what democracy does is allows the people locally, by voting in state, and local, county, city, and eventually federal elections, to give input into the needs and desires of those local populaces. So if you have bad infrastructure in your community, you hypothetically go out and vote for somebody who will maybe help deal with the infrastructure problem in a way that you think is satisfactory. Now, that doesn't mean that necessarily that every single person is going to be voting in their best interest or the interest of the wider society. And that's why I think an important part of democracy is having an informed electorate. And that's why I think education is so important. It's why I think media literacy is so important. And those are 2 things I really care about a lot.
I agree, and I think we agree on the type of government that you're describing. I just don't think it should be described as a democracy.
I mean, it is a form of democracy, though. Categorically.
I think I think what we have here is a constitutional republic. But
that's a form of democracy.
Well, have you studied Aristotle and Socrates? They've debated this before, and
I have their books as kind of like coasters a little bit like that. That count?
Well, Aristotle made great points about what you're saying is democracy, which is a direct vote by the people to determine policies, and they're easily manipulated by demagogues and misinformation. And so we don't have that form of government because people are easily misled, and the people just choose the leaders who we think will make the best decisions on our behalf. And it's for that reason that our society is so stable. Because if I was a politician and I was to say, well, if you vote for me, I'll give you $50,000 a year, and my opponent's saying, no, that's crazy. That's going to wreck the economy. I'm not going to give you any money a year. Of course, they're going to vote for me because I'm the one offering them the money. And even though it'll destroy the economy, the voters, unfortunately, are very short-sighted. And so we don't have a direct democracy. But we agree on in principle on how the government should be. I hate that term democracy. It's the wrong term.
But it is a type of democracy. There can be two types of democracy you don't like and types of democracy you do like. We're a democratic republic, but that first word democratic is where the democracy comes from.
Yeah, we're getting into semantics, I think, a little bit, but I like describing it as a constitutional republic, because the republic of the representatives of the people who are bound by a constitution and who have been democratically elected. And I think that best describes our system of government. But anyways, that's besides the point, I think, a little bit. What I wanted to press you on is Drone Tech's main, I guess, overarching argument about news coverage. And you're saying, oh, he's using this excuse that Fox, OAE or OAN and Newsmax, that he can't make this argument that the majority of news coverage doesn't portray the Republican Party in a certain light and the Democratic Party in another light. And so is what your argument is that he's wrong because they have opposing opinions and different types of coverage, that therefore the majority of the coverage isn't oppositional to the Republican Party just because there's a minority, even though it's a popular minority, it's a minority of the coverage. Are you saying that doesn't exist?
So
that the majority of the coverage
Originally, I believed the discussion was about whether the media is the enemy of the people. That was what we were following up on a debate from last time about that, where we had it on a Hip Hop Fascist show. I forget, the Crucible. Then it kind of transitioned into about the lies of the media and if the media is state sponsored on behalf of Democrats, after we talked about NPR and stuff like that. And I said no, because we have all these examples of these media outlets, which he's like NPR, criticizing the Biden administration. And we have these, like I was pushing back on that. And then eventually we moved that position from the media is state sponsored for the Democrats to, well, the majority of news coverage is critical of the Republicans. And then we moved it back to here. My main point when it comes to the media is that our media is sick with partisanship, because partisanship is profitable. When you find like a little niche of people that you can just grab and you can adhere to in every way, no matter what the evidence says, if you just keep telling them they're a good boy, they'll keep coming back to you for all the views and stuff. This is what, that's why I was trying to talk, that's what I was eventually going to get to with the Dominion lawsuit, is in the Dominion lawsuit, that's what we were seeing. Is that Fox News was scared that they were going to scare off their Republican viewers if they were to announce that Joe Biden was the president of the United States, that he had won the election. And they were scared that if they didn't cover the stuff in a certain way, even though they didn't even believe it and they knew it was false and they didn't bring on people to push certain narratives about the election, that they could lose that niche. And that is very scary, because then you're creating information bubbles where people cannot go out of there to gather information from other sources. This is why I'm a huge advocate for media literacy and diversifying our media intake. And I don't know exactly how to confront this issue, but I know on a personal, individual level, diversifying our media intake and working on media literacy and working on investing more into education for the average, not only the average voter, but just children in general. These are the basic steps I know can help with this issue. I don't know what else needs to change as well, but there needs to be structural change in media to deal with this issue and get rid of these information bubbles.
Are those your ambitions?
Can I ask you this?
Hold on, Jacob. Hold on.
Are those your ambitions personally?
My ambitions is not something I'm very interested in, the journalism involving war and conflict. But it's also very difficult to because in my dream world, I would like to walk over to Russian occupied territory and cover what's going on there, but I can't. I would get arrested if I attempted to do that. So it's kind of difficult to do it in war journalism, but it's not something I'm personally invested in doing. But maybe in the future, if I ever started a media company, it'd be something I'd be very interested in. I know there's things like ground news, I believe, which works on making sure so it shows you media bias of these different news companies when they're showing you a story, and how other different news companies have covered these events. And I hope people go use platforms like that, because it really helps you diversify your media intake.
Well,
hey, real quick, I want to jump in here real quick. We can continue in just a second, but I got a super chat from someone who super chats the crap out of me every live stream, Sunil Montwani. And he says, Dylan, would you please educate this veteran drone tech on the PACT Act and tell him to do a video on it? He owes it to the veterans in his chats to talk about the biggest expansion to VA healthcare in 3 generations. And he's been trying to get me to do a video on the PACT Act for a while. And it's not that I don't want to. It's just that I have a very specific thing I usually make videos about. And I'm in this sort of mode of doing it every single day, you know, and it's like I got to find time to do something like that, and it'd be something different for me. So I promise I will try to do something. I mean, you've paid me.
Sounds like you need to please your donor. You should go cover the PACT. I can't believe. Wait a second. This shows the bias in Drone Tech's coverage that he will not cover the PACT Act. It's terrible. He's establishment media. That's terrible.
Right, and then we have RW. Says D-Tech, you understand Hegelian dialect, right? You fight for conservative rights, which I respect, but both sides are controlled by one system. Yeah, not.
Yo, it's like 10:30. I haven't chilled. I'm dealing with this for hours. Okay, we started at 8. It's been over 2.5 hours. Really appreciate any donos. DylanBurns.tv. Any subs, donations. Greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions you want me to ask them,
like Democrat state, but I also,
if you donate it, I'll ask it.
Complicated than that, because there's obviously Republicans who join the fray. You got all these like former Republicans in the media, like Michael Steele, who is in the media, and what does he do? He hates Republicans. It's like, so it's like obviously like it's more complicated than that. But yeah, I get that.
Well, can I also say that like a lot of these Republicans that we say hate Republicans, the Republican Party is going through a massive transformation in a very short period of time, through Donald Trump's presidency and also the Tea Party preceding it. It's not that crazy that there are a substantial portion of Republicans on television and just in the world who would feel disillusioned with how the Republican Party has transformed in the last 8 to 10 years.
You can say the same about the Democrat Party.
No, of course. That's why you have people like Tulsi Gabbard.
But right, well, no, but in the Democrat Party you have like the squad, and those are the people driving the Democrat Party now. But you do not see an equivalent. There's no Democrats in the media that's what they do. They like hate on the Democrat Party for going to the left.
Wait, that's not true. What's that? What's that one Southern dude that hates Bernie Sanders more than everything in the world? He's like, he's ruined
Bernie Sanders is not even. I wouldn't even put him. I think he is less left wing, less extreme. No, look, I think Bernie Sanders is actually less extreme than what the Democrat Party is becoming, because you have like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris openly promoting things like equity, which is a communist concept, and which Bernie Sanders isn't even willing to go. On Bill Maher, he was actually confronted about this, and he said that he chooses equality over equity, which surprised the shit out of me. But yeah. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't know if you wanted me to respond to that.
I just whatever you think about it. I mean,
I do think that there are figures in the media who criticize the left part of the Democratic Party as being somebody who is usually considered in the left part of the Democratic Party. I've seen a lot of that criticism not only in local like Democratic Party meetings, but also on the national level. Bernie Sanders was dragged through the mud by people like Hillary Clinton and others as somebody who's dividing the party, somebody who's destroying the party. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. A lot of people have been.
That's what I'm saying.
Have been attacked from
Bernie
different
Sanders
factions of the party. There's a lot of infighting in the party.
No, but Bernie Sanders has actually shown himself to be kind of a maverick within the Democrat Party. It's kind of weird. I never thought I'd say this, but he's actually less extreme than the squad. And those people are definitely driving the party, correct? Am I wrong?
Are the squad driving the party? No, I don't think the squad are driving the party. That's not.
Are you serious?
No, that's not true at all. I think.
So why is equity a concept that's just being like mainstreamed out of nowhere? Why did that? Why did that so quickly replace equality?
Okay. So driving the party and getting a narrative onto television are two totally different things. There's a lot of things that's talked about on TV, right? People talk about, for example, let me give you an example. Marijuana legalization is something that's very, very popular, extremely popular. Majority of Americans want to see pot legalized. I don't know if you want to see pot legalized, but I want to see pot legalized. Majority of Americans want to see pot legalized. Majority of Democrats want to see pot legalized.
I get it.
It's
I
considered
get legal pot.
It's considered it's considered one of the more left-wing positions in the Democratic Party to be in favor of weed. Joe Biden, though, is not budging. He's not budging on making pot legal. He budged a little bit and did some stuff on the federal level when it comes to decriminal, but not really much.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
And so the idea that like the squad and AFC, they're driving the party, they don't have enough influence and haven't been in power long enough to get their roots in to have enough influence to drive the party as much as people think they do. It's just that they're in the media so much because that's what they're good at, which is smart because they should lean into their strengths, but they do not drive the party. They're just one small faction of the party. If they did drive the party, then we would have seen an actual vote on Medicare for all, and we would be seeing the Democratic Party pushing Medicare for all. But we don't. We don't even see the party really pushing anything on a public option right now. But that was what Bernie was running on. That's something that AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and the squad care a lot about. They don't have enough influence to drive the party. They do have a lot of influence in the media, though, to drive media narratives.
Okay, well,
actually, can I just interrupt there for a sec?
Go for it. I have something to say, but go for it.
Actually, there's a bit of misleading on that because I do know that the guy who actually left the Young Turks, what is his name? He's a comedian who's
Jimmy Dore.
He's very critical.
Burns.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore. He actually called for pushing the vote. And do you know what AOC did? Absolutely nothing. And she's been having photo op with the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. So I don't see how she would have actually. I don't see how that she really actually cares, about Medicare for all, since she had the chance to do that. But she didn't.
Well, I think
Democrats had all the power there for a while, right? Well, for 2 years.
Well, the thing is, whether or not AOC personally supports Medicare for all, forcing the vote was a stupid idea. It wasn't going to get Medicare for all achieved. Everyone, including the forced to vote advocates, acknowledge that forcing the vote would not get Medicare for all achieved. What it would have probably done is would have meant that she would have made a big mess of it, and they would have had a vote, but then after they had the vote, not only would it mean she would probably get a weaker committee position, meaning less influence, meaning it would be more difficult for her to build the power base to push more progressive legislation that can actually pass later on, but it would probably end with Medicare for all suffering like a disastrous defeat with only maybe 20 to 25% of Congress voting in favor of it, which honestly I think would have done more damage to the Medicare for all movement than in favor of it. I don't think that her not supporting forced to vote, which wouldn't have achieved Medicare for all, necessarily indicates that she doesn't really care about Medicare for all. I think it indicates that she didn't think it was a good strategy, which she has said on multiple occasions.
See how a committee position would actually improve things at all.
I mean, it gains more influence for the progressive wing of the party, which has historically not had as much influence as it now has.
I highly doubt that.
What do you mean? Well, okay, so maybe it's because I'm a nerd and I worked at the state capitol, but committee positions are very important. Having powerful committee positions are very important. Those committees are the people who decide what legislation gets voted on, how legislation is drafted, how the legislation is treated, what people do get to come to committee and get to talk and testify, and what people don't. If you're not on a strong committee or you don't have a committee position, all you do in Congress is vote and really nothing else. Committee positions are political gold in politics. Part of the reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene stumped so hard for Kevin McCarthy wasn't because she loves Kevin McCarthy. They're pretty politically, different in a lot of ways. The reason she did it was because Kevin McCarthy promised her a lot of fucking committee positions, a good committee position.
Well, she was already in a committee before.
Yeah, a lot of that was going on.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, why do you think people ask for committee positions during these speakership races? Because of the influence that they can garner them. They can garner their political factions or themselves personally.
Well,
the force of vote would have put pressure to do something.
I don't think it would have done anything, but then you know what it would have been like when people brought up Medicare for all? It would have been like, oh yeah, that thing that lost by 80%. Yeah, nobody wants that, obviously. And then that's how people would remember Medicare for all. There would have been a public debate on it, but Bernie Sanders already had a public debate on it by running on it in 2016, brought it to the public sphere. I don't know why we need to take a fat L on Medicare for All in order to have a public conversation about Medicare for All and expend our political capital doing this when we can garner committee positions that could actually garner us influence for a longer period of time down the line. I don't think it was worth the political capital.
Dylan, do you think DeSantis could beat Trump for the nomination for the Republican Party if he was to jump in to the race?
I mean, it's possible. It's hard to say because like everybody, I remember there's a lot of people told me that Trump's already done, that we know Trump is done for sure. Oh, wait,
Isn't
1 second.
the most common type of democracy a representative democracy? How many were direct since Athens? Can republics be non-democratic, e.g. Iran?
So do you want me to ask that question? I can ask that question in a second. By the way, thank you for the $10. So
guys, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not 100% on this, but I'm pretty damn sure this is going to go away quickly. I don't think it's going to go anywhere at all.
Yeah, even Democrats have been criticizing the charges.
So the Ron DeSantis stuff, I think that Ron DeSantis will know when he jumps in immediately on the debate stage. I think that's when we'll know, because people said like, oh, Trump didn't have a chance in 2016, but then we saw everybody fall once after the other, after the other, after the other, to Trump's aggressive debate style, Trump's aggressive campaigning, and his mudslinging. And I do not think that Ron DeSantis is a good enough mudslinger to go in the pits with in the trenches with Donald Trump.
You gotta be smart.
Yeah, and so that's part of the reason. And you know, Ron DeSantis knows this, and that's why he's been avoiding confronting Trump when Trump goes in public and calls him like, I think at once he suggested that he had an affair with his students, like on Truth Social. Like
I think
insane claims.
I think the media and Democrats want Trump to be our candidate. I would prefer DeSantis, and I've been open about that for a while now.
Well, can I just say I'm not a Trump supporter. I prefer DeSantis over Trump because DeSantis gets things done. However, as of right now, the only candidate who can actually really get the Republicans into the presidency is Donald Trump. DeSantis is a successor to Donald Trump after he finishes, if Trump gets elected again for his second and final term next year, then DeSantis, I think, would be a good successor to Donald Trump.
I hope you guys nominate Trump. That's what I'll say. I think
right. The Democrats want us to nominate Trump.
Yes.
And look, I love Trump for a lot of reasons.
I hope you nominate the person who's currently going through legal trouble right now on the campaign trail from 4 different angles, whether it be from the Brad Raffensperger call, whether it be from the DA, whether it be from any of these people. The Brad Raffensperger call, I think it's actually more condemning than what Alfred Bragg's being.
Well, wait a minute though. See, but that's actually a problem of what I was talking to you about earlier about the Republicans being criminalized, Democrats opponents being criminalized. All this shit that they're throwing at Trump is literally just because he's their main political opponent. If this was going the other way, Dylan, I guarantee you in an alternate reality, this is going the other way, and you're arguing the opposite direction right now.
So do you think that I would argue in the opposite direction if Joe Biden called the Secretary of State of a state when he was losing an election and told him to find the votes to make him the victor, and then gave him the exact number of votes necessary in order for him to win, telling him he needed to find those votes?
Yeah, I'm saying that would be nothing. Yeah,
I completely disagree with you.
That's so vague. That's like, what do you mean? Find the votes? Like, go out there and count them and find them. That doesn't mean anything.
He wanted him to rig the election in his favor. That is what he was requesting. And I think people saying otherwise, I think are playing dumb purposefully.
Look, that's bullshit. Yeah, that's going to go nowhere, Dylan. I promise you it'll go nowhere. That's nothing.
Do you want to listen to the audio? I can get the audio. The audio is
I know of it. I know of it, dude. I know. It's nothing.
It's bad,
yeah,
man.
That's
okay,
nothing.
Why did he say the exact...
It's so funny to me,
Can I ask you a question? Why did he give the exact number of votes? The exact number of votes necessary for him to win. The exact... No, it wasn't. I listened to the whole thing. The exact amount of votes necessary for him to win. That's insane. If I was losing by 1,001 votes, and I said, I need you to find 1,002 votes, what does that seem to indicate?
Dylan, don't you find it real quick? Just because he's just saying, I need those votes. That's all he's saying is go out and get them.
He said one more than I need was the exact word he used. How is that any
different? Look, how is that any different from the fucking media and stuff going out and telling Trump electors to not vote for Trump, even though the states won?
What's the difference? You want to know what the difference is? No, one person is a figure in the... Okay, sorry. I was asked a question. I'm sorry you interrupted me. My answer. Continue. Okay.
It's going to be
So-
purely opinion based, but go for it.
So a media figure recommending people not vote for Trump. Bad idea, by the way. They shouldn't have done that. That's different than the president of the United States calling a secretary of state of his party and telling him to find the votes, giving them the exact amount of votes necessary for him to win the election so he could win it. That right there is extremely suspect.
All I'm seeing there is he's saying, this is what I need. Go get those votes. Count the votes. Find them. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like, what do you think that means?
I think that means he was basically telling Brad Raffensperger. I was okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. So continue. I interrupted your interruption. Continue.
Fraudulent votes.
Sorry. There was like two people yelling.
Can I just say?
Hey, Jacob, hold on, buddy. Hold on.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so what I think that indicates is that Donald Trump was trying to put pressure on Brad Raffensperger to basically, in some way, connive and scheme and to get him the votes necessary for him to win the election.
There's no way.
Because he didn't want to lose. Absolutely. I believe that with my heart of hearts, 100% with my soul, man. And I feel like, honestly, people have to do some like walking back from their conclusion to say otherwise. Dude, if this was Joe Biden, you guys would be like hammering me over the head with this.
The media, the government, big tech, all united in trying to undermine the 2016 election results by spreading actual Russian disinformation in the form of the Steele dossier and an attempt to torpedo. Do you realize
what does that have to do with anything I just said? This just sounds like a pivot.
Can I just say, what is wrong with pushing for finding the votes? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Though the problem is he's giving them the exact number of votes necessary for him to win. If I called somebody when I was losing an election and saying, here's the exact amount of votes that I'm losing by, find these votes. That sounds like I'm telling him to make me the winner, even though I didn't win. That's exactly what it can easily be interpreted that way. And that's why he's under investigation for it. That's why there's a law. That's why there's a case.
Your way. Hold on, Jacob. You can interpret it your way. You can interpret it my way. But the only problem is my way is going to win because nobody did anything, and there's literally nothing he could have done.
If he attempted to do that, that's still a crime. It isn't a crime just because he didn't succeed. Also,
nobody attempted. There's nothing.
He did attempt. He did attempt. He was trying to pressure him. He did exactly. He was trying to pressure him. By the way, how has Trump treated Brad Raffensperger since then? He has dragged him through the mud, treating him like the biggest sack of shit. He in fact endorsed his opponent, trying to get him out of office because he didn't rig it in his favor. So he's trying to bring political repercussions because he didn't show him loyalty during that election by just making him the default winner of the Georgia election.
How many people been murdered surrounding the Clintons? I'm just wondering. I'm just saying.
Zero people. Seth Rich was killed by a mugger.
Trump, all right. Trump is an asshole. All right. He's an asshole. He does asshole things, stupid shit, says dumb shit constantly. Thanks, this is why I don't like following. This is why I don't like being a Trumper, because I don't like defending all this constant dumb shit. But like, I'm just saying that like that is not going to go anywhere.
Can I bring? Oh, well, I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but whether it goes anywhere doesn't change what I think. What I'm positive his intent was. I do want to ask a question for my chat. Somebody donated $10. Isn't the most common type of democracy a representative democracy? How many were direct since Athens? Can republics be non-democratic? Example, Iran. It's vital to recognize democracy, not just republics.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I agree. And I like democracy, but I want to make sure Democrats understand that democracy doesn't mean Democrats in power. That's not what democracy means.
Let's think what Trump seems to think democracy is when he wins every time, because Trump doesn't respect our electoral system. I don't think he does.
I mean, the whole democracy thing, I mean, that all started with like Hillary Clinton saying that it was a danger to democracy because Trump was raising doubts about the election, and yet like
I do Hillary think Trump can I drop the bomb take in here? Okay, so in the room for the conservatives, I do think Trump is dangerous for democracy. I absolutely do.
I think he's dangerous to America. Media is dangerous to democracy. I think I think there's lots of dangers to democracy.
So let me express why. So Trump will never accept a loss ever. And if you're running a
Democrats, well, when have Democrats accepted a loss since the year 2000?
Every single election.
No,
Every single election, every single election
absolutely
that
not.
Democrats have
I will
lost.
fight you
Every
to the death
do you want
on
me
that
to?
one.
Every single election that Democrats have lost, the Democratic candidate has conceded. Al Gore conceded after the hanging chads.
Fuck that, though.
John
But then
Kerry
Bill,
conceded in
no,
2004.
Stop.
Hillary
No, he
Clinton
didn't.
conceded in
No, he
2016.
didn't.
Yes, he did. Al
No,
Gore did concede.
no one
Al
is
Gore conceded.
obligated to
Hillary Clinton
concede.
did concede.
Everybody
Hillary
stop.
Clinton conceded.
Everybody stop.
100% Hillary Clinton conceded. Yes, she did. She
No.
called. She even
Hillary
called Trump.
Clinton
She
conceded.
called
John.
Trump to concede.
Stop.
And then
All right.
she sued to audit multiple states.
She was going to audit
get a
and then she
recount.
dropped it. But whether or not
Okay.
she was going to
Well,
audit, that
that's
doesn't
not
mean she didn't
conceding.
concede. That is conceding.
Then what did she do,
That is
Dylan?
conceding. She conceded.
Dylan, and that was it?
Conceding
that was
is not
mostly it.
contesting.
Yeah, that was mostly it. Yeah.
Mostly? Was that mostly it?
Yeah, afterwards,
What
she would
else
talk about
happened?
like Russian disinformation and stuff like that.
Wait,
but she
no,
accepted
no,
the
no.
loss. It's over.
And Al Gore
Bullshit.
only conceded
Bullshit.
after he lost
Richard.
his suit at the Supreme Court.
Dylan,
That's
no
not
one is
conceding.
obligated to accept the results of the election.
I believe.
stop.
I do
You let
believe
me-
that. Okay, Donald Trump isn't. He's never going to accept the results of any election unless he wins. He specifically said, running up to the 2020 election, that if he loses, it is rigged, and he was saying that very seriously. He wasn't
You know what,
joking,
Hillary-
and it isn't the
you know what,
first
Hillary
time.
Clinton
It
said,
is. I. Sorry, you interrupt. Sorry, the start of your
I know.
sentence interrupted the middle of my sentence. Continue.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Donald Trump has expressed similar sentiments to that into 2015 Republican primary. He expressed similar sentiments to that into 2016 general primary. And then he expressed the most blatant version of that sentiment in 2020 when he said, I will never accept, he would never accept it by expressing the fact that if I lose, it is rigged. You should never, ever, 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 ever in a democracy say something like that, because what you're doing is you're just preparing to completely reject the democratic results of election, no matter what the results are. That's not safe
So
for a democracy.
what?
Everybody
That's
stop.
bad.
Jacob, stop.
Then you're just
Jacob,
threatening the
Richard.
democracy.
Okay, I will agree with you on that, Dylan. Let's agree. Okay, we agree. So this standard must be equally applied. And so I must ask you now, what was it that Hillary Clinton said in 2022, like just last year? She said that
Really a lot of
literally,
things.
she said Trump literally, she said, she put out a video. She said Trump literally has a plan to steal the 2024 election. And then
She was
before
right,
that,
though. She was right.
Huh?
She was
okay,
right,
so
though.
it's different when you do it.
Well, no,
You
wait,
just
wait,
got
wait.
done saying
Wait,
how
wait,
dangerous
wait,
it
wait.
is.
To be clear,
And now you just said she's right for doing it.
Donald Trump had a plan written up on how to seize voting machines using the military, and his advisors were trying to tell him how he can't do that. Donald Trump was trying to
okay.
call
You know
secretaries
what?
of states, asking them to overturn the election by
I
finding the
don't think
votes
she said
necessary.
Trump.
Now,
Hold on. I don't think she said Trump. I think she said the right, actually, now that I think about it.
okay, well, that's too vague. That's a stupid statement. I don't like a statement
Well,
like
wait.
that.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look it up real quick. Hold on. Nobody jump in here. Hold on.
If she just said the right, that's like generally too vague for me. I don't like that vagueness. But I will also say there's probably things that Hillary Clinton have said since then to try to make up for the fact that she was just a bad candidate. She was a bad candidate in
Okay,
2016.
hold on.
She didn't campaign in
it.
a lot of. Okay.
She said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but she said the GOP literally has a plan to steal the 2024 election. That's what she said. And I just want to also put out there real quick that during the 2020 election, the media and the Democrats were united in a narrative that democracy was threatened, and it was heavily implied and just outright stated in some cases that unless the Democrats won, then democracy would be over. Joe Biden said that the election was so important that the Earth's very existence was on the ballot.
I mean, that's hyperbolic. Yeah, I would say
Okay.
that's hyperbolic. I don't think he should have used that much hyperbole. The Earth's very existence. It makes it sound like a
That's what he
doomsday
said.
event.
He said
But
the
the
very existence.
yeah, well,
the planet. Is
well,
on
yeah,
the
I
ballot.
think that's hyperbolic. But I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that Donald Trump disdains democracy, because democracy sometimes means he loses, and when he
But
loses, he will never
hold on,
accept it. Do you think it's
Hold on,
good?
though.
Wait, I want to answer to this question before you tell me to hold on. Do you think?
If the state is hold on, if the state is saying that if Democrats don't win, then democracy is over, what the fuck is that?
Wait, you said the
That's
state
like
you
one-party
said-
rule.
okay, the state said that. When you did he say that leading into 2022, or did he say that leading
No,
into
I'm
2020?
saying the government, the ruling government, being the Democrats and the media, both had the narrative, and I can show you that this is very well established that unless the Democrats won, then democracy was on the ballot. That was the narrative.
I do think
and so
democracy
the
was on the ballot, but
implication
yeah.
there if Democrats don't win, then democracy is over. So what the fuck is democracy?
Well,
is it one party rule?
Wait.
Like,
just because democracy's on the ballot doesn't mean it's over if they lose. For example, like wait. If abortion is on the ballot, like for example, there's a pro-abortion and an anti-abortion candidate. If the anti-abortion candidate wins, that doesn't mean abortion's now banned. You cannot have abortion anywhere. That means that there's a possibility that more restriction will be placed on abortion, and for people who believe in abortion rights, it's not going to be a fun time, and then you're going to have to work against that to try to make sure you stop them from rolling back on abortion rights. So in this scenario, if you're running against somebody who's an anti-democracy candidate, and I don't know if I would classify Donald Trump as an anti-democracy candidate, even though I don't think he likes democracy very much, the idea would be that they would roll back or try to avoid the checks and balances put in place restricting the presidential's power to stay in power, which he did try to do in 2020. He did try to maneuver around that. That's why these executive orders to seize voting machines were written up.
Yeah, I know Trump says and does shit like that where I'm like, why? What are you doing? Why are you saying that?
Can I also say that Donald Trump has been saying that if in 2024 he needs to win because Joe Biden's going to blow up the world in nuclear hellfire.
Right, but here's the thing: if I'm Trump and I believe everything I'm saying right now in my bones, then I'm going to say that because I believe the survival of the country is at stake. But like I just told you, like the media and the Democrats were united in saying that. So if you're on the opposite end of that, like from my perspective, that looks like the Democrats and the government, the ruling party, want to take over like authoritarian control. And it's not just me that sees this. Like there's that
what indicates that they want to take over authoritarian control?
So it's kind of this whole thing that I've been talking about outlawing political opponents, outlawing the speech and criticism of Democrat power, Democrats not getting held accountable because the media
outlawing criticizing Democrats. What law were they? What law were they going to pass that would outlaw criticizing Democrats?
Right. This is over time, and I'm just
over time. So this would eventually they would propose.
Right.
Joe Biden's awesome. Don't bully him, please.
No, look. I've been saying this for years, and it's just like we're seeing signs of it over and over. Like it's like a good example. Stacey Plaskett.
Do you see it in the stars, or where do you see it? Do you see it in like the tree, in the leaves, and the tea?
No, I see it in the actions of Democrats and the unity between government and the media in the case of Democrat ruling government to chip away at these things. And so like you have people like Stacey Plaskett and then the media giving her veracity, saying that the media framing this as like her busting the Republicans, saying that the Twitter files and not Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi and the other guy, I forget his name, Michael Schellenberger, that they were a threat to Democrats because of their reporting. They were a threat to Stacey, and they were a threat to the CEOs of Twitter because of them breaking this story.
How does that indicate that they're going to introduce restrictions?
That is part of a pattern.
That doesn't indicate anything. You gotta show me legislation. You gotta show me legislation, man.
Well, we're getting to that. I mean, it's a build up to that. And I'm saying it's something you should worry about. Yeah.
It's
look, I will tell you.
When the government influences big tech, it's clandestine. When multiple intelligence agencies secretly coerce these tech companies to censor speech, that is effectively a government banned speech, because they're either they're not giving overt threats, but them making communication is enough to influence them to take action, and that's wrong. And I think you would agree with that.
Okay, so there's two things I need. This first thing, if there is a legislation introduced that's like, even if it's like we need to ban saying the N-word, right? I'm not.
You don't need it.
Well, let me.
That's overt. That's overt.
Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to talk.
No. I'm just saying that's not necessary in what effectively is censorship. You don't need any overt action. You can do it clandestinely.
Yeah, but I was trying to respond to Drone Tech first, and then you.
Okay, I'll silence now.
So
go ahead, respond.
If there's ever legislation introduced by Democrats, Republicans, anyone that tries to restrict freedom of expression, I'm going to be against that. Whether that's banning even saying the N-word, the most evil.
Well, that guy just got sentenced for a meme.
The most rancid. There is such a. Okay, I'm not gonna. We're not gonna.
There was no proof that he influenced anything.
Let's not rehash it.
I'm just saying.
If there's, but for example, let me say, for example, flag burning. This was something that was big for Trump. He wanted to ban flag burning. I was against that. If Joe Biden came out tomorrow, I was like,
can you
can't
burn a gay flag?
Yeah, you can burn a gay flag. You're allowed to do that.
Are you sure?
It is legal for you to burn a gay flag.
Hate crime? Didn't the leader of the Proud Boys get charged with a hate crime for burning a pride flag or a BLM flag?
It was actually in my community. He went to a black, his Proud Boys went to a black church, and they stole a Black Lives Matter flag off of the black church, and then they burnt it in the street. And so then he was detained over, I think, arrested over property damage.
Okay, well that's legit.
Larceny.
Okay. I thought it was a hate crime, but okay.
No,
that's legit.
It wasn't a hate crime. That was actually around where I live.
And I think I initially heard the guy who did that burnout on the gay pride flag on the road, like, why do you put a pride flag on the road in the first place? But apparently I heard he was charged with a hate crime, but I think maybe that's not
he wasn't.
True
he wasn't charged with a hate crime. That was something that was getting repeated. He was charged with, I think it was criminal mischief, because he was doing burnouts and shit, which you're not allowed to do.
I think that's I guess that's.
I mean, he was like purposely doing. It's like very obvious that he was purposely doing
but they put it there, like it's a public statement.
Well,
no, look, here's my thing
it's a
about
public
that.
statement. Wait, it's a public statement, but that doesn't mean, like, if he wants to make a public statement, he can go next to it and he can be like, "Oh, I hate the gays." He's allowed to do that if he wants to, but he can't. You can't do burnout. You can't do burnout. Well, I mean, who knows?
I'm not big on the pride flag. I don't hate the gays.
Okay, well, good for you. But whatever his message is, like, he can express it in a million different ways besides doing burnouts to damage the painting that was put on the street. And it was criminal mischief. It's not a extremely hard charge. He's fine. I don't even think he's not gonna see any prison time over. It's gonna be probably like a fucking small fine.
But it's still. I mean.
So, like, to be clear, so if I go outside of your house, Drone Tech, and you've like painted something on your driveway, and I go into the driveway,
no, I agree, it's private property. Like, it's different.
It's different. So you're saying we can damage public property? That's fine.
Well, public property with a political message on it, I think, yeah.
That's not.
Yeah, can I ask?
That's not. I don't think that's.
Yeah, because like, let's say it's a street painted with a Trump flag.
Okay,
Do you think that would get burnouts on it?
If the government decides to do that, I think that would be very silly. But if they were to burn it, it would still be a crime if you were to do it. Yeah.
Right. I agree. That's what I don't think
the pride flag is equivalent to a Trump flag.
Well, you're wrong. I'm sorry.
You know, out of all the times they tried to
it's a political
damage.
Well, I mean, the American flag is a political flag, isn't it? I mean,
not everybody. If you're gay, do you think that being gay means you agree with the pride flag?
What do you mean agree with the pride flag? It's a symbol that represents a community.
I'm saying it's a political statement. Okay.
Do you believe if you're American, you have to like identify with the American flag?
Well, it is your country.
Well, but your country does a lot of things. Yes. It taxes you. It goes to war. It does all these different things. There's a lot of people who will explicitly eject the American government. Right? They're sovereign citizens. They don't see themselves as Americans. They're the people of the world. There's people who will reject that as a political message. So can I go out and like burn American flags on public property? Like like I can go take flags from the White House and go burn it
with some sort of a crime for that.
And which I should be.
Yeah, I'm okay with. I didn't disagree that it was okay for the guy to get charged with something.
Okay, I thought you were.
I was just saying that like putting a political statement on the road was just like asking for it. Like, come on.
It wasn't
That's why I asked about the Trump flag. You think if they didn't put a Trump flag on the road,
maybe to you it's different, but for
it?
most people, when they see a pride flag, what they see is a symbol representing acceptance for the queer community. That's what most people say.
That's not what it is.
Well, that's not what it is. I'm sure you, the person outside the queer community, knows what that really represents to us queers.
Well, flags mean different things. Like there's people that the American flag is triggering, right? So
of course, if some people, I'm sure some people in Cambodia see the American flag, they're going to get flashbacks.
Look, my distrust and dislike of that flag has nothing to do with like gay people or any of that. It's like it's obvious the way it's constantly changing and all that. It's like
Look,
clearly just
I don't like the new
thing.
progress flag. I just don't think it looks good. I like the original rainbow. I think the rainbow, if we can monopolizing the rainbow is pretty effective marketing, I gotta say, right? Because I see people like getting angry when they see a rainbow anywhere. I saw this TikTok of some right winger being like, "This rainbow on a children's, it's just a rainbow around a cloud," and they're getting angry at it. Just shows like the marketing genius of us queers.
With kids with all that.
Okay, can we before we move on to the gays being predators for the children? I want to respond to the other person asked me a question. Sorry, somebody else asked me a question. I need to respond to that. I have to respond to the other question.
Nobody here hates gay people.
Hang on, can I just say something? Out of all the times people have
somebody asked me a question. Somebody asked me a
flag.
question earlier, and somebody else asked me a question. I never got to answer it.
I asked.
What was the
it
question?
was about whether. Well, you were mentioning. Well, Drone Tech was saying that there was like sort of a march forward to legislating censorship.
Mm-hmm.
But I said,
"Oh yes,
that's
it doesn't like because the government can request these companies." So something that I was
influence them and coerce them in a way to censor Americans, and that's state-sponsored censorship.
I think it depends on the specific instance. I think, for example, in India right now, they have this. There's this like. It's very complicated, but there is documentaries that are getting censored off of Twitter. That the Twitter, the website, is censoring on the behest of the Indian government. They're censoring BBC documentaries. They're removing activists' account. They're removing the accounts of journalists and even some politicians. And they're cooperating with the government in doing this. I think this is in large part due to the fact that they fired 90% of the Indian staff, and so now they're just doing whatever the Indian government requests of them. Even though before Elon took over, they fought them on this, and they would even sue him over it. But now that Elon took over and he fired all his Indian staff, they couldn't be bothered, and so now they're doing whatever the Indian government wants. That, I think, is a real problem. And so any government that engages in that, I think it's risky. But I do think that there is a difference when it's, for example, let's say there is something that is blatantly false said on a social media platform, and if a government wants to bring attention to that, say, hey, these posts were blatantly false. You can do what you want. You can do what you don't want. It's up to you. As long as they're not bringing in legal repercussions, I don't have too big of a problem for that. I know one of the examples that I use all the time, this isn't blatantly false, but like Hunter Biden's cock was getting posted around. And so they asked for Hunter Biden's cock to not get posted on Twitter, since that was like the sharing of leaked nudes, which is technically against Twitter policy, which then got those removed. I think that's fine.
It doesn't matter. It's the principle. It's not the content. It's the principle of it.
The principle of removing the cock photos?
No, that's not the principle. The principle is the government interfering in such a way to censor any type of speech, unless it's speech that, in certain exceptions, speech that incites like violence or defamatory, you can handle that civilly. Mostly any speech that's criminal in America. Outside of that, if it's political or if it's, I don't know, something that is disastrous for someone politically, they should not be involved in that. And it's illegal.
Can I
it's going on.
It's illegal for the government to make Twitter aware of posts on social media and say, hey, we would like it if you remove this post of Hunter Biden's cock. That is not illegal.
No. But de facto,
making now that about his cock is also a state media.
It's not. Wait, when you're saying the state media narrative, but that's true. That did happen.
No, what they're doing though is by pressuring them, by bringing this to their attention, de facto they are causing a censorship because they know that company has a fiduciary duty to, its shareholders, and it's in their best interest to comply with any requests or any sort of statements about pulling something down or being aware of something.
I don't think it's always in their best interest to do that. And like Twitter used to fight on this. For example, in India, I think they only fulfilled 20% of the government requests. Now they fill a lot more because they fired all the India staff. They used to sue the government over this stuff too. So it's not always in their interest, because if it is found out that your social media platform is basically a stooge for the government, then like a lot of people are not going to want to use that social media platform.
Well, not if they're monopolies, which we have here. I mean, where are they going to go?
We don't have social media monopolies. You can make other social media platforms. A lot of social media platforms pop up and then die off all the time.
Well, they used to. I think they're here to stay.
We have Truth Social, we have Twitter, we have Gab, we have Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have all these different types of social medias. Facebook, Meta now? Do they call it Facebook? Do they really call it Meta? Is that like just a meme?
What I'm saying is that the influence is improper and potentially illegal, because what their aim is and their intention is to censor, and that's illegal. The government is prohibited to do that unless it's a legal speech, which, like I said, is like inciting, violence or whatever. But not anything political or something that
it would be illegal if the government was to go to Twitter and say, if you do not remove this picture of my son, then I will bring the law down upon you.
Dylan,
it's an implicit threat. It doesn't have to be explicit.
Wait, if it's an implicit threat, then why did Twitter reject many government requests before? They didn't fulfill all the government requests.
Stop. First of all, the climate at the time was that the election had been stolen by Russia, a conspiracy theory about the election, by the way, that's the danger of democracy, and that they had done that through platforms like Facebook and been spreading disinformation and all that stuff. So then the FBI went to these. So then the FBI went. So look, hold on. Then there was big media stories about how these platforms could be responsible for the election manipulation. And so then the FBI comes to these companies and they're like, guess what? We hear that there's Russian disinformation coming down the pipe. So you better do something about it.
And so dollars to defend against those. What? It just takes an investigation. That's it. It costs so much money to defend against a congressional investigation, whatever. It costs a ton of money. So you'd rather comply than deal with the repercussions of not complying with whatever requests they have.
The Twitter used to, before Elon took over, they used to fight governments that are a lot more aggressive and a lot more less lenient when it comes to freedom of expression, like the Indian government. They used to fight them on this stuff. So I find it hard to believe.
I think it's cheaper to hire a lawyer in India.
What was that?
I think it's cheaper to hire a lawyer in India.
I don't think the cheapness of Indian lawyers impacted their principles on this.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck.
Well, they have a different currency value compared to America.
I'm sure they have a different currency value compared to America, but I don't think it was the cost of the lawyer that made them take that stand. I think it was that they knew that if they just become government stooges in India, then it's going to bring down the reputation of the platform, and it stood against the ethics of what Twitter stood for and what the Indian staff cared about before they were all fired.
Well, I think it did play a part.
Okay, what gave you that indication? What is there anything that points towards it?
Well, have you seen how much it is for $1 in an Indian currency value? That's a lot of Indian currency money, out of $1 US. So, and
that
considering
doesn't. Wait. I didn't ask if lawyers in India are cheaper. What I asked was, is there any evidence that the costs of lawyers came into the consideration of Twitter when they were deciding whether or not to adhere to Modi's government when it came to their request to remove documentaries and social media accounts of their political rivals?
You mean, are you referring to today?
I'm asking for evidence. That's what I'm asking for.
No, what are you referring to? Like the removal of documentaries today?
They're removing documentaries today. Elon Musk's Twitter is removing basically anything the Indian government asked them to remove at this point.
And I'm referring to pre-Elon Musk, not now Elon Musk.
Okay, so before Elon Musk, they used to fight Twitter. And they used to fight the Indian government on this stuff. They only fulfilled 20% of the requests, and they fought them on it, right? Now, they also, I think, at one point sued. Now, you're saying that the reason they did this in India, right, and they would never do this in America, is because the lawyers over there are cheaper. Now, that's an interesting theory.
It played a part.
Okay, you say it's playing a part, but and that's an interesting theory, but is there any evidence, anything we could point to that would make that shows that Twitter considered lawyer prices when it came to whether or not to accept Modi's government's requests on removals?
Well, how much do you think it costs a lawyer in the US to hire?
You're not answering my question. I'm
I am answering the question.
It's not evidence.
I am answering the question.
That's not
using
evidence.
I'm using what I call logic.
Not very logical.
Yeah, but the better question is whether or not, Dylan, you think it's right for Twitter to comply with the requests of the Mani government.
In most instances, no. In most instances, no. In very few instances, yes. But in very, very rare instances. And like I can name like some examples of
Dylan,
yeah.
Let me ask you, what do you think about Twitter complying with the government to suppress bad news about Biden?
When it comes to what specifically, the cock or the other stuff?
Well, it just happened, and it happened in favor of Democrats once again.
Wait. Wait. Let's be clear. If we're gonna have you guys focus on Biden showering with his daughter, okay, I'm gonna talk as much as I want to about Hunter Biden's glorious.
It's just funny to me. You think there's
any
nothing
bad political news, basically.
Look, if any government was to tell, like, hey, if you gotta censor all the negative stuff on me, obviously that's bad. I don't endorse that.
Right, they did that. It happened, and they actually manipulated. There's a very good chance they manipulated the election in favor of Biden by doing that, because there are, I believe, 2 different polls that show that if Americans had known about these things, they'd have around 17% would have voted differently, and that would have shifted the election.
I heard Trump quote this poll during his
There's
during
2
his
of them.
arrest speech. Who did the poll? Who did that?
I will find it right now, but let's just say that that's true. What do you think about that?
Let's just say that it's true.
Well, if it is true, I'm gonna look it up right now. But if it's not true, then
it was true.
I just want to see who did the poll, because Trump quotes a lot of polls, and it'll be like I'm up by.
It's not Trump quoting that poll.
Well, Trump did quote the poll. Yeah, he did during his like arrest speech afterwards. He quoted it. Now, so when it comes to Russia, we were talking about Russia earlier, and specifically like Russian disinformation, the Russia hoax, and I think this is what this is all connected to.
See, the way you even talk about it, like you dismiss it, it's just so crazy to me, because you talk the way you do, but then when it comes to actual like authoritarian government actions that are out in the fucking open, like you just like it doesn't even matter to you, like you don't even give a fuck, because like it's not happening to you. If it was reverse, you give a shit, but like now you don't.
Can I talk now?
Yeah,
okay.
Go for it.
So the Russian government has this book that they teach in the Russian Military Academy. It's called The Foundations of Geopolitics. It was written by this guy. Some people know him. It's called Alexander Dugin. Some people overplay the influence the guy has, but the biggest piece of influence he ever had is his daughter getting assassinated, and him writing this book, The Foundation of Geopolitics. It's mandatory in the Russian Military Academy for officers. And in the book, it details that the only way that they're going to ever defeat the United States is by causing as much chaos as possible within the American political system. And that they should do everything they can to cause racial strife, to cause discontent and heightened partisanship.
Ideological subversion.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so
that's what you guys are. That's what you are. Not you per se. I'm saying the side you're defending.
Okay, so
you guys are the ideological subversion.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, we're all a part of it. But I'm just saying.
Me, the man in Ukraine, and my allies are the ideological subversives.
You are
the Russian government.
Hey, people might not remember our earlier conversation. I am all about what you're doing. Yeah, right.
I appreciate that.
We're confirmed on that.
But the Russian government is interested in causing as much of that subversive action in the United States as well, whether it was through their state media apparatuses that they sponsored in the United States, which while sometimes would do genuine reporting, if you were to look at the slant of their reporting, you could see the way it was bent was sometimes it would pump up like really like right-wing stories, and the next day it's going to pump up really left-wing stories, and it's going to do everything it says, like America's doomed, America's downfalling, America's crumbling and crashing, while Russia's like the ascending power. Or we could talk about the Internet Research Agency, which was a real thing that tried to spread disinformation during the 2016 election. How much influence that has, we have no real idea. We know that people saw the posts that they were posting on Facebook, book and stuff like that. But who knows really the impact they had. Some people use that to say that Trump, that's how Russia stole the election for Trump, but that's not true. Disinformation spreads in every election. They influenced the election in favor of Trump, but didn't steal it in favor of Trump. So when people say the Russia hoax, I just want to be clear. Sometimes when people say that, they get this idea in there, because it is true that Russia didn't steal the election, but it isn't true that Russia didn't try to influence the election, or Russia doesn't have an interest in trying to cause as much subversive activity or civil strife in the United States as physically possible, because it wants to destroy the United States in order to rise in power.
And so I just want to point out to you, I just want to point out to you that this narrative conveniently empowers your side, your party, and puts the other side as
this isn't a narrative.
Suspicious.
This is just like everything I said.
No, I'm just saying it does though inherently.
Dylan,
just think about that.
Well, can I just say the reason why?
Hold on.
Guys, one at a time, please. One at a time.
You never really responded to my original question or my earlier question.
Well, there's so many points being thrown at me, so I'm trying to respond to one point at a time.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rephrase it.
You can rephrase it, yeah.
We were talking about government intervention in people's ability to communicate through their influence with big tech. And I asked you for, like, I guess I was asking for a clear line as to what's acceptable in terms of the content that you think the government should intervene and try to suppress. And
this would be it. I think that I can give you a line. Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
We do know, I hope you are aware of this, we do know as a matter of fact that the government did in fact intervene with the big tech company Twitter and suppressed the Biden laptop story. Now, would you condemn that, especially considering that it in fact turned out to be a true story?
I think that they should have removed all the posts when it was first going up. I don't think they should have done that. I think that obviously a lot of that information since then has been vindicated. Now, I don't know how much of it is vindicated. Some people say the entire laptop is true. I don't know if I necessarily buy that. And the reason why is even though some people they completely disregard the idea that the Russian government could have had any involvement in this, it is a calling card of Russian disinformation to take a lot of true information and then combine it with disinformation and put it out there so the disinformation has more credibility because you can confirm some of it. So if you can confirm some of it, then maybe all of it's true, and then you're like propping up disinformation. And we also know that the Russian government did try to hack Burisma and the companies that Hunter Biden worked for. And now this is my interpretation of that. I don't know why specifically they would be hacking one of the smaller Ukrainian gas companies out of when you compare it to one of the larger Ukrainian gas company. I did answer your question. I did answer your question. I said they shouldn't have. But and now I'm adding some nuance to it because I also do think that there was legitimate concern about the Hunter Biden laptop story being just straight up Russian disinformation. I do think there was legitimate concern. And I am happy that now we have a better reflection of exactly what is true and what isn't true.
Let me ask you, Dylan, do you think that if this had happened the opposite way during a Republican administration, during an election, do you think that it would just be let go like it has been for the most part?
Do you think the Hunter Biden laptop story has been let go?
It's not. Where is it in the media?
It's fucking everywhere, dude. I hear it all the time.
Talking about
all the time. I'm sorry. Look, dude, I think this is just like what's the, not Occam's razor. Like, this is the thing where it's confirmation bias. This is 100%. This I feel like 90 of this debate.
I tried to check myself for confirmation bias. I don't think it's confirmation bias. Okay. I really don't. I don't think it is.
I mean, okay. And
I'm
not think
like a Trumper or a Republican, like hardliner or anything.
No, man. You're basically a socialist.
Yeah.
Socialist.
Can I just say something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just our server got nuked because there was leaked information from the Hunter laptop information.
Oh, just because you're right.
We got nuked
dude.
because of
how did I forget about that?
Yeah,
Holy
how
crap.
did you forget about that, man?
Holy
Yeah,
crap.
we lost
You
our whole
just dropped,
shit.
Like, holy.
So,
I'm like
there's
having
that.
palpitations here. That's
I know.
true.
It's a
Oh
fucking
my
fact
god!
that happened.
I remember
Dude,
when we lost
my
our
old
server.
Discord server got nuked because somebody had
Yes.
Hunter laptop information posted.
Yeah, it was he posted the entire thing right after like maybe like 2 weeks after that Discord exclaimed that they were going to be like, oh, we're going to be hunting disinformation, blah 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 blah, shit like that. And then he posted the entire.
I never even connect. I totally forgot about that because
That's what happened.
I remembered that they had posted something that got me, and I was mad about that. But I forgot that that's what it was, and it was.
That's what it
right.
was. Yeah, that's what happened, dude. We lost
Holy
it all.
crap! I feel like an asshole now for being mad at those people.
No,
Holy crap! Like
yeah,
I got really mad. If those people are watching, man, there was a few of you. I feel really bad now. And I can't come up with the names at the moment because I'm a little drunk because I've been drinking these.
All right. Which one was that, by the way?
I remember one time where we tried to get on Gilded, and that probably didn't work out.
Yeah, we had a Gilded server, but I hated Gilded, and so I just gave it. I just left it.
What's Gilded?
I was like, I'm leaving the server. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, Gilded.
Wow, I gotta get in touch with those people. I feel bad. I feel really bad because
they're coming back. Dude. They're coming back.
I mean, it was weird that they posted that stuff like right before we got, but maybe it was completely harmless.
No, that was intentional. No, it was from a certain people. I won't say their names on your stream, but we know who it was.
Oh, I remember now.
Back, yes.
It just occurred to me. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was intentional.
If we said those names, we would have got kicked off now.
No, I just don't want. Yeah.
Yo, we've been talking for like 3.5 hours.
Almost 4 hours. So yeah. Let's wrap this.
So
up.
if there's any more questions, like now would be the time to ask them because I have to actually go and review a debate now.
Okay, I want to ask a question. Do you feel as though that there is a lack of recourse on how to deal with news who actually commits false information or defamatory or makes misleading news reports or statements, considering the fact that probably the only recourse is like either making a complaint or suing for defamation, in which we all know that defamation is hard to prove.
I know that like Trump once proposed like loosening up the libel laws. That stuff scares me. I'm very much like I feel like we should never touch the First Amendment because like okay, maybe not never, but like I'm very scared of the idea of the government poking something that just seems like it has been very effective in helping Americans like with very unpopular speech be able to say what they want.
Why do you support the Dominion thing then?
What do I support the Dominion thing then? I support the Dominion thing. I support the Dominion thing in large. Well, number one, because I know that Trump, like the Fox News was knowingly lying about Dominion voting, and knowingly spreading disinformation. Wait, well, the emails prove it. The emails prove it.
It's a Democrat media talking point. That's bullshit.
I thought it was a thing that I just said that you could have
people can have an opinion. That doesn't mean you're knowingly lying.
Oh well, what you just said is a Republican talking point, and it's bad because it's right wing and evil.
No, but that's just the way it is. You can those people, as a person observing other people, that they can think those things, but that's not necessarily the fact. 100%. You don't know that. I don't know that. So that's an opinion.
We'll see. We'll watch them. Wait.
They factually know that. But that's a fucking.
They said they were talking about. What do you mean? Okay, stop calling it Democrat media talking point just to discredit it.
That's what it is.
Discredit it. It's a Democrat said it.
They repeat that shit over and over and over again.
Okay, but I also said it, and you can confront it. What I said.
You said
right?
that.
Okay, if every single time you said something that was a right wing talking point, I had to say that's a right wing talking point. Then every single time you said anything, I had to say that's a right wing talking point, right? But that'd be pointless because it's either because something can be a right wing talking point and it can be correct. Something can be a left wing talking point and it can be correct.
Well, it's not correct.
Well, okay. Well, I think it is correct. But either way, when it comes let me explain. God, let me explain. Oh my God,
Dylan, you yourself know that's not true.
You gotta let me finish.
You know it's not true.
Lord above.
Guys, calm down. All right, it's a long day. We're all drunk, so let's take a break.
Not all drunk. Wait, you're drunk? I'm not drunk. I wish I was drunk for this.
No, look, it's a fact. Look, everybody at Fox might have thought that it was bullshit. But and then they went on and gave a different point of view. That's just what journalists are supposed to do, right? They may have a point of view, but that doesn't mean that that's what they report, because they're not. Hold on, that's not what they're supposed to. But you're saying they said that we have recordings of them saying they knew it was bullshit, but then they went on to say other things. That doesn't mean they're lying. That means they had an opinion, and then they reported something that wasn't their opinion.
I think you're reaching immensely here. I'm
not reaching.
I think you look like you sound like a basketball player. You sound like you feel like a basketball player trying to. Now let me Jesus Christ, you guys are forgetting. There's a lot more of you than there is of me. Okay, so you gotta let me finish. So
hey,
the main reason I like because again, dude, you gotta let me finish. There's like 5 of you. There's 1 of me. So Dominion voting. The main reason I like the lawsuit is just because of all the juicy shit we got out of Fox News that exposed a lot of their unethical. Let me finish. Their unethical business practice. It is 100% unethical for Rupert Murdoch to be communicating to the Trump campaign through Donald Trump's son the ads that Biden was buying out in media companies, telling them about the quality of the ads, what type of ad it was like, how they should be investing more in ads, that type of stuff, giving them that information on their political opponents. They should not be doing it. You can call it bullshit. That is in the Dominion stuff. I'll give you $100 if you disprove me. I'll give you $100 if you disprove me.
That's irrelevant. Those things are irrelevant.
Wait. Let me be clear. I'm saying I like that being revealed because that exposes unethical business practices. That's separate from whether they're lying or not. That's a separate thing. I like to see unethical business practices exposed.
The other news organizations. Can we see this shit on the other news organizations?
Oh my gosh.
Can we get all these documents?
Dude, that'd be hilarious. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Do you seriously believe that they're not engaged in this stuff?
But how is Rupert Murdoch talking to Donald Trump related to election stealing? How is that relevant?
It isn't. I told you. I said it was a separate point.
Hold on. Dylan, do you remember the original Democrat email hack in 2015 or whatever?
It's been a while. It's been like, how long has that actually been? But
the original hack, remember, Well, it was the original hack they claimed that stole the election, the Democrat email hack. Well, the news of what was actually hacked was very quickly dismissed. Do you know why that was? Because it was tons of emails showing coordination between the Democrat Party and the media. And you know what else was very similar to that? There was a thing, and I'm sure you don't remember this. I've been into this shit forever, but hold on. There was a forum that was exposed. It was called the Journo List. And you can Google this. It's kind of hard to find, but you might be able to find it. It's called the Journo List. And it was exposed, and it was Democrats and members of the media. And they were all coordinating on the talking points. This was during the Obama administration. They were all coordinating on talking points, and a lot of these talking points came out, and it was all shit like, "This is what we got to say about these Republicans." This is why I laugh when you say like the Democrats aren't state media, because like this shit's been going on for a long time. This coordination between Democrats and media, it's been exposed multiple times, and it always just goes down the memory hole, never to be talked about again. So that's why I laugh about commemorations of events that the media chooses, because they're never events that put them in a bad light.
I mean, Summer of Love, whatever. But the main point I wanna hit on here is, right, because as much as I could disagree with you all day, I believe that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have gotten too cozy with their respective media apparatuses, whether it be MSNBC or Fox News. I believe media exists in large part to be confrontational with those in power if those in power step out of line for what is the will of the people or what is ethical for their position. And I think both the Republican Party with Fox, which has some of the most popular cable news television shows on television, and the Democratic Party with certain hosts on MSNBC and other platforms have gotten too comfortable. I don't know if that's the fault of the politicians for trying to get comfortable or if that's the fault with the media for allowing them to get comfortable. I honestly feel more blame towards the media because it's kind of hard to imagine a politician not taking the opportunity for somebody to say, "Want a good interview to help you?" Like I would imagine most politicians would say, "Of course I do. I'm running a campaign." It is the media's job to hold them to account. It is the media's job to say, "No, I'm not going to treat you like a puppy and pat you on the head. I'm going to ask you about your unethical campaign contribution. I'm going to ask you about this. I'm going to ask you about that." But they don't do that because Democrats and Republicans, largely speaking, like to stay in their information bubbles, and these shows want to make sure that the politicians come back to revisit their show, so they don't want to ask them any difficult questions because politicians are afraid to be challenged because most of them are pussies, to be somewhat blunt.
Okay, can I just say?
I agree, and guys,
okay,
we gotta wrap this up.
I hate to
Don,
slander politicians. A decent chunk of them are pussies. That's better.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Before I go,
guys.
can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
Politely. I respect what you're doing, Dylan, and we can agree to disagree, but I do respect what you're doing. So I'll just leave. Like, we're not all against you. Some of us are actually pretty fair, and I do again respect what you're doing. But again, we disagree. It's all good. So I just don't want you to think that we're all the same.
Yeah, it's a complicated topic, and we get in our teams because we get pushed into those because we feel like if you're conciliatory in any way, you give up ground, and that's why and during these discussions I try to be. I just want
this to end on a good note. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Dylan, I respect you, and I love what you do, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. I don't do a lot of these, but you expressed interest in wanting to do it, so I thought it'd be interesting, and it was. And I appreciate you coming on here, and I appreciate your work and what you're doing in Ukraine right now, putting your life online. Actually, unlike most of us who are in our cushy homes right now, you're actually in a war zone, in a bunker, living as we speak. And you're going to go out there and report the news for us, and I appreciate that, and appreciate you coming on here. Thanks.
Thank you. I do want to say, I just want to say quickly that as much as I get heated during these debates, the reason I get heated during these debates is because I'm passionate. I love it, right? It comes out of me. I'm very excitable, right? And I also want to say that, to end on a good note, a unifying message moving forward for all of us as Americans: Hunter Biden 2024, move this country forward. Hunter Biden 2024.
Woo! Ric Flair. Woo!
Hunter Biden as the main nominee, and for vice president we'll have Alvin Bragg. Uniting, this is the unity ticket. Unity ticket.